Beautiful.
Hello.
Hey.
We are haters without the coals. This is
Yep.
Pre,
Welcome back.
and I am jaded. I'm quite jaded because I have the big sick, so my voice might sound a little weird.
No. When did you get sick?
Um, my throat was a little hurty yesterday, but I've tried to like
Oh.
stop it before it began. I was like drinking tea,
Mm-hmm.
eating soup, but
Yeah.
nah, it's too late. It like developed
Ugh,
into like a full blown cold, and I was like, "Fuck."
rats. Well, we'll take it easy today. We'll analyze this video and we'll give our silly little points and we
No,
won't get
don't give it
too
away yet.
harsh. Oh, rats. I'm sorry.
All right. So, for those listening at home, we're doing something different today. We're gonna start pre-recording videos and
Mm-hmm.
uploading them after the fact,
Mm-hmm.
just because
Yeah, we
we keep seem we seem to keep running into like technical flumps when we do live streams.
mm-hmm. Yeah, we were having a chat about it a couple of days ago, mentioning basically what he just said, that every time we go live, we usually start a little later because there's internet issues or things cut out. And so we figured this was the best way to keep the content quality as good as it possibly can be for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And we can cut out uninteresting things that we might get off topic on that people might not find interesting and add stuff in later if we feel like, stuff like that.
But like that'll ever happen, right? Because everything we
No,
talk about is
really.
interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
But today we're gonna be talking about Helluva Boss.
Yeah, our first trial episode, we analyzed a video from Helluva Boss, so we're kind of coming full circle now.
That's right. If you saw the unofficial pilot, me and Perry, we're fans of this show. We think it's pretty neat.
And I know that's controversial in some stances,
Some
but
circles.
yeah, circles, that's what I was looking for. But we are big fans of the show and the art style, and we have our opinions on it, and we've heard the critics, and we know why people don't enjoy it, and that's valid. But most of the stuff I feel like it does get criticized for, we've kind of found to be disproven.
Yep. Yeah, not everyone agrees. I think it's like it's almost unpopular to be a fan of this show in some
Yeah,
circles anyway.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um
I definitely getting that vibe.
one person in
Get
particular thinks that the accusation levied at one of the episodes is that it ruins the entire show.
mm-hmm.
Maybe
And
he was a fan, but now he's not.
yeah, I don't know. It's a lot. It's I just, again, I see where the critics are coming from, especially if they're criticizing the creator of the show, but most of the things that get said about the show are from people who actually haven't watched it. Um and are
Correct.
people, yeah, and I feel like it's the people who are like, oh, I'm edgy, I don't like things that are, getting popular, not in the mainstream, because this definitely is not mainstream, but like, and then like I feel like they're the kind of people who don't actually care about things being problematic. They just look for anything to criticize and call problematic and things that they don't like.
Yeah, I think we covered this on episode 0. We were like,
Yeah.
like how squeaky clean does a person's record have to be before they are a good person TM?
Yeah, I think half the critics of the show kind of get thrown out immediately, in my opinion, because it's usually that like subset of like in my opinion, and experiences, this is just a generalization of like queer people online who are like, in the minor range, and they're always like, oh, F this show because it has this problematic theme. Yet then they'll turn and blog about South Park and Family Guy and be like, this is hilarious. And it's like, hmm. You
Gives
know what
off
I
a
mean?
bit of a different vibe.
yeah, it's like South Park and Family Guy. Like, I feel like Vivian, the creator of the show, has like mentioned being like that those shows kind of like not inspired her, but like she liked that they didn't hold back at times, like when it came to comedy, and she's like a big believer in that comedy shouldn't be censored and whatever.
She
But
like that style
it's
of
like
humor.
yes. And it's like, but when is it okay and when is it not okay? Like, why are we excusing these big time seasons and years long TV shows versus the one that just came out recently and has a different kind of theme? Honestly, it has more queer representation as well. And I think that's a big issue because people are like, if it's not represented perfectly, it's bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. These are just my silly little thoughts on it. Like I see why people don't like it, but at the same time, why aren't these like half the people I see criticizing it like are like, "Oh, I'm a South Park Kinney," and it's like, "Those really?
You just I
Are we for real right now?"
and like
Like,
Helluva Boss has a very like irreverent style of humor, but like
mm,
I don't think it's fair to like reduce it to just that because I think it's about so much more than that. There's definitely like
mm-hmm.
dramatic elements to that show.
Yeah, they definitely go into some themes that have nothing to do with comedy, and again, I really think people who criticize it just don't like the art style and don't like the creator and haven't seen the actual series, let alone probably a single episode.
I don't know how you don't like the art style, by the way. I know that's
Yeah,
subjective, but like, goddamn, this show looks pretty.
I like I've said before, I think I said it in episode 0 and I'm kind of outing myself here. I was like a fan of Vivian long before Hazbin and Helluva even came out. Like I was following her on YouTube when she was in school still and like posting like sketchbook like images and stuff. And it was just like it's she always had that art style and it's yeah, it's different and I don't know, like I know some people see it as cringy and whatever, but I think it's really
I don't know.
beautiful.
I think it's like for a YouTube show, there are shots where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
god damn.
Yeah, and they have a lot of great and talented like artists working on the show, and I know like some of them are kind of corny, like Angel Dust, and has been like his character, like he got a lot of like what's backlash, because he's a gay character, who's a porn star, but he's like overly gay, like the stereotypical kind of gay, and
Mm-hmm.
like um his like body language and the way that he's drawn is like overtly like sexual and bad, and everybody's like boo that stinks, and it's like well that's his character. Like there are tons of characters in other shows that are like that are the stereotypical like gay like personification. Like they had that in Glee, they had that in Modern Family, they had that in How I Met Your Mother, like all these other big shows. They do it in South Park and Family Guy, but like everybody thinks it's funny there. But is it just not funny now because they kind of look like furries?
I guess I'm wondering where the line is.
Mm-hmm.
If I at
Yeah.
least understood where they're coming from, it's like that's something, but like I legitimately don't know why this show catches so much flack.
Yeah, me neither, personally. I again, I get the criticism against Vivian, but pretty much all of them except for one thing that people criticize her for has been disproven. Like literally she has come out herself and talked about every single issue that has ever arose against her. And anytime something happens with Helluva or has been, they get resurfaced, of course. Like nobody cares until an episode comes out, and then everybody cares again.
Starts all over
And
again.
yeah, and she's addressed it multiple times, being like, I shouldn't have to say this, but like, this is what happened. And most of it is irrelevant stuff. Like somebody thought like she stole a character from somebody else she used to work with, which wound up being not true. She bought that character from that person, and that person was got into a falling out with Vivian, so they like tried to frame her as stealing this like character and being like, "Oh, it was my original design." And then Vivian like, posted receipts and was like, "Hey, I actually bought this character from her, and anytime I use this character, I credit her in my like, end credits." And
Oh
it's
damn.
true.
She must have
Yeah.
brought out literal receipts.
Yeah, it was stuff like that. And then another thing happened with a previous like worker, like somebody tried to claim that Vivian didn't pay them well, and that was at the time where like I think they still have the Patreon up, but that was when like the Patreon was like their only source of income to like pay the animators
Mm-hmm.
and fund of the show. Now they have like the merch store and everything. Um, and then every other animator that worked for her and still works for her came out and they were like, that is just not true. This person is just bitter because they got fired. And that wound up being true. Um, and I know they're the one issue, which personally, in my opinion, is the only valid criticism against Vivian and why I would understand why people wouldn't want to watch the show is she used to back I think it was like during COVID times, or a little bit before then, because I think she said she was like I don't know, she was younger at the time. Not that that's an excuse, but she was supporting these two um, YouTubers who at the time were like giving off very conservative views, but one of them was a trans woman. So she was like, she
Mm.
had like admitted, she was like, at the time I was interested in seeing what she had to say because she was a conservative trans woman and like wanted to hear, she was like, I wanted to hear both sides at the time and like see what was going on. She was like, but because I was subscribed to them and like she had like drawn them for something, she was like, people thought like I was in diehard support of them when she was like, I've been unsubscribed to them and don't like align with their ideology, and never did. She was just listening to them and like, you know what I mean, like that kind of stuff.
Even that, like, I'm just like, what does that have to do with the show, though?
Yeah, like isn't like I don't even know, the creators of South Park, aren't they like conservative? I don't know much about them.
Um, I
I
know
know
the
Seth
person,
MacFarlane isn't,
Seth,
like the
yeah,
creator of
Seth
Family Guy.
MacFarlane. I was gonna say he's left leaning.
Yeah, I knew
South
that.
Park guys, I I think they're right.
Yeah,
Not
that's what
right
I
as
thought.
incorrect, but like right
I
leaning.
Yeah, I thought they were kind of like in the Elon Musk realm where they act like they're like libertarian and not right
Yeah, or
leaning, but
like
they are.
centrist. Like they
Yeah,
make a lot
exactly.
of jokes at um do they make jokes at everyone's expense or just lefties?
Um, I think it's at everyone's expense, but they like the jokes that they like are like, I don't know, I feel like they get the most popular are the ones made against like
Yeah.
minorities, or
They're
where they'll like show handicapped people in the show and like do horrific stereotypes against them, and then people think it's funny, but then they're like, but it's fine because they're being represented.
the ones they have the most fun with.
And like they'll like make that person like that handicapped person, I don't know his name in the show. I think he begins with a T. I could be wrong, but he like calls one of the like main guys like Hartman and Stan, whatever, he calls them the R word, but because it's coming from him, everybody's like, oh, that's okay, it's
It's
funny.
okay.
And it's like, no.
Pretty no, it doesn't work that way.
No, not in my opinion, but again, that's I I think there should be a certain extent of like how much like you're supporting someone. Like not everybody, because Vivian just writes the show now. She doesn't really animate them anymore. She just like helps write the script, and obviously she owns the characters and yeah, the entire series as a whole. But in all the credits, she I don't think she's listed as an animator anymore. So it's like, I don't know.
Oh
How
well,
how
there you
far
go.
are we going?
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I totally get why people don't like the show and don't choose to support her for those past controversial reasons. But I think if you haven't seen it and you're like still making these assumptions about it, give it a try, give it a chance, because I'll bet money half of these people have seen Family Guy episodes and South Park episodes and think they're funny and don't say a single word about those creators. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah. Give Helluva
Mm-hmm.
Boss a watch because like Perry brought this to me and I had no idea about like any of this. I was just like, oh, this show
Mm-hmm.
looks fun, and then I enjoyed it like way more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
And it was then when they brought up the controversies, and I was like, some of them I understood, but some of them I was like, what?
Mm-hmm. I think personally, in my opinion, the only valid controversy against the show, not the like creator, is when Blitzo did. say, or Blitz, excuse me, Blitz did say the R word in like the pilot
Oh yeah,
episode.
yep.
That
We
wasn't
did
cool.
go over that.
Yeah, I've said before that was a very big mistake on their end, and they haven't done it since, but they also have never addressed it. So I'm like, I don't know if that was their version of being like, we recognize this was wrong, but we don't want to make a thing of it and just moved past it, or because I feel like if
We're
they
taking
didn't
a
care, they
break
would
from
have.
that joke. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like if they genuinely didn't think it was wrong, though, they would have made that joke again and again. You know?
Yeah, there's a lot you could say about that particular scene. Um,
Yeah.
I think what I said was like you can come up with excuses for why it makes sense in universe, but like out of universe, you have to question like why as a writer did you think
Mm-hmm.
why was this your vision? Why did you decide to put that in
Absolutely. And again, I said this in I think what in our this wasn't in the pilot I talked about
the
this, but it
pilot?
was a yeah, but I think I mentioned it a couple of episodes later about how Maddie in Euphoria says the R word like a few times throughout the series. And I've never seen, and I think Euphoria's fan base is usually like our generation and younger. Like it's pretty similar age range in the Helluva Boss fandom too. Like it's
I'd
our
say they're the same.
generation. Yeah, really. It's like that. Honestly, like I don't think 16-year-olds should be watching either of those shows, but it really is like 15, 16-year-olds to like 25-year-olds in my
Yeah,
experience. And like I have not seen a single criticism of that. I mean, there probably are some out there, but I personally
they'll be
haven't
on
seen
the
them.
fringe.
Yeah. And but I have seen criticisms of Hell of a Boss and
Yeah,
Has Been
it's like
Hotel.
rampant. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't get it. I'm like, what? But Steven Universe gets a pass. But
No,
okay.
really. Yeah. And I know a lot of people like compare the shows too. Like they're like, oh well, what? They're like because in the video we're about to watch, someone in the comments was like, oh, this fandom's terrible. They can't take any criticism. They're turning into the new Steven
I saw
Universe
that
fandom,
too. I saw that too.
right? And I was like, bro, like
I
yet the
You don't want to
entire
go there.
yeah, and the entire comment section was people agreeing with him. Like
Yeah, all
I
the
think I
top
saw like
comments.
exactly. I was like, I think I saw a couple of them that were like, hey, this point didn't make a lot of sense. But most of them were like, no, you're right. Like, I love the show, but you made some valid points. And it's like, who's not taking these criticisms? Y'all are projecting.
Well, spoilers. At one point, he says in the video that if he sees any like dissenting commentaries, he's just gonna heart them, so people will. He
Uh,
can put like the hell of a boss fandom on display. Because I think one of them was like, "It's brave to talk about how bad this show is while you have a
yeah.
Raid Shadow Legends
Raid Shadow
ad."
Legends. The same video. I died at that. I
Yeah, and
liked
it
it.
got a heart. So I was just like, "Wait, is that? Did you enjoy that comment? Is that not a
Yeah.
criticism?" It was.
Uh,
He's just being
I thought
cute.
that was pretty funny.
I thought it was funny too. But it's like
Yeah.
if your criticisms are wrong and we like debunk them, that doesn't mean we can't take criticism. Like surely we know there's a difference, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I mean, obviously we're gonna get into that, but there are actually some points in the video he made that I don't totally disagree with, but then there's others where I'm like, this dude is just talking in
Yeah, there are
circles.
some that are way off the mark, especially after I've
Yeah.
watched the episode again. I was like,
Yep.
yeah, you didn't know what you were talking about here.
Exactly. And again, like I don't think I've said this like on the podcast, but I've said this to Eve. I was like, before I watched Hazbin and Hell of a Boss, I was actually one of those haters like online because I'd never seen it and I'd only ever seen the art. And yeah, I was still subscribed to Vivian, but I liked her older projects. I didn't like Zoophobia, but I liked her like old like short animations and like, you know, speed paints and whatever. Um I know nothing about Zoophobia, but I liked her just like her art style. Um, and then when she made Has Been and Hell of a Boss, I remember like seeing all the discourse online, and I was like, oh damn, this show does look lame, or like, because people were taking it out of context, and I was reading that, and I was like, oh. She does suck. This show does suck, but I had never seen it. And then the one day I was like, you know what? I've seen all this discourse, but I haven't actually watched it myself. And I went into it like as a hater. Like I didn't go into it thinking, "Oh man, maybe I'm going to like this,"
Oh,
or
you
like
didn't
maybe I
go
should
in
give
with an
this a
open
shot.
mind.
I didn't. I really didn't. I went into it thinking like, "Oh, this is going to be terrible and I can't wait to make fun of it." And as you know, uh we are haters without a cause, so I have no problem being a hater. But the show genuinely changed my mind when I watched it. I wound up liking it way more than I thought I would, and it made me a fan. Like, I was a secret fan for a while. Like, I've been a fan of it since, like, I think episode 3 came out. That's when I finally caved in and watched it. And then I think I showed it to Eve like 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
I was just
So
telling someone
I
about the first time you told me. That was actually the same day we decided to do a podcast. Fun fact.
really, oh. Yeah, I think
It was in
I was just a
October.
closeted. Oh yeah, so it was a couple months ago. I was a closeted fan of it for almost a year, like, because I was embarrassed by it, because I was a hater at first, so all I knew was the discourse around it. So I just wasn't going to be like, and listen, there's cringe people in every fandom, and I don't
Yeah.
support some of the people making these weird ass like art, like this weird ass art of most of the characters, and then like again, the same beat of people who will defend the show to their till they're red in the face but won't take any criticism. Like, I'm not like that, but I definitely am a fan, and my mind was changed after watching it. So I highly recommend, if you are a hater like I was and haven't seen it or have only seen an episode, at least make it to like episode 3 or 4 before you start passing judgment, and do your research behind Vivian yourself.
Yeah, show ain't perfect, but it is quite good. And that's coming from like you said, that's coming from haters without a cause. So
Yeah.
if we're giving it the
So
stamp of approval, I mean, I don't know.
it's got to have
It's gotta have some
something.
merit. So
Exactly.
check it out.
Listen, we delved into Korra, and Eve had issues with Korra, and that's a very popular, well-known show.
Yeah, like we're
So
finally on
we
speaking terms after that episode.
we finally decided to be friends again.
Yeah,
Like,
we buried the hatch. I gave them a call, and they were like, "You know what, Eve, you were right about everything." I said, "Yeah, happens sometimes. We can go
that
back
sounds
to being
exactly like
friends."
me.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like, again, we both have no problem hating on things, and again, I was a closeted fan because I was a hater. And actually, it was Al, funny enough, who got me to be public about my like for it.
damn.
Yeah, I don't think I told you this because I think I had like seen something on my like For You page or like Twitter, whatever it was, like fan art or something about the show, and Al had like noticed. I don't remember the interaction word for word, but they were kind of like, "Oh, like you watch Helluva Boss," and I was like, "Do you know that show?" And they were like, "Yeah, like
Got
I
you.
really like it." I know we'd never talked about it. It was like pretty early on into our relationship too. It was like, I don't even think it was maybe like 6 months in. I don't even know, but I was like, "Wow!" Like, I was like, "And you enjoy it?" And they were like, "Yeah, I really like it." And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, now I feel comfortable actually talking about this show. So without them, I probably would have never been as public about liking it as I am now.
And one thing about Al, they know shit. They're gonna figure it out.
Oh yeah, they're gonna they're not gonna support something either if they think it's bad or problematic. They're just like us. They're not as much of a hater as us. They're way too kind, but
Yeah,
they're just as selective with their media as we are.
they have standards, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I was a
and
closeted fan of Friendship is Magic, but not because it's problematic.
just because people think it's cringe and like call
Yeah.
you a brony and stuff. But funny enough, I'm actually watching season 8 right now.
I'm in my Adventure
Re-
Time era right now.
oh, very nice. Yeah, I'm rewatching Friendship is Magic. Um, I was never really closeted about it. Like, I liked it. I didn't start liking it until high school. Um, because I had friends in grade school who liked it, and they were like, "Oh, you should watch it." And in grade school, I was like, "I'm too old for like a My Little Pony show," and I never liked the series even when I was younger. Before the Friendship is Magic era. And then I just gave it a try the one day in high school, and I wound up loving it, and I still rewatch it till now, and I'm very open about liking it now. I could not care. It is a great
I
show,
couldn't care
great
less.
storyline.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
We we will talk about that one day, but for now,
Mm-hmm.
that's just all I have to say. But yeah, again, give the show a chance if you haven't, and if you don't like it, that's okay. And if you think it's problematic and think there's issues with it, that is okay too. You are allowed your opinion, and we're allowed ours. And I'm not going to be mad at anybody who doesn't like the media that I do.
Yep, same.
Yeah. So glad we
we're all allowed to be wrong sometimes.
exactly, and it's totally fine if you think we're wrong. We're always right, but it's fine if you think
It's
we're
fine
wrong.
if you think otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, great intro, and we
I
want to
think
get
that's
started. I'm
enough.
ready.
I think that's enough verbal lubrication. I think let's just get on with the video. You know, come in hard and fast.
Oh, Jesus. With the lube too. All right, let's jump right into
um.
it.
Oh, good. You're in the watch together room.
Oh yeah, I am.
Okay, so this video is called "The Episode That Ruined Helluva Boss."
Yeah, and I said this to Eve when he first sent me this video, and I was like, the opinion's gonna be bad when they have a little drawn
Yeah,
animatic of
cartoon
themselves.
avatar.
Of them in the corner. Usually I'm surprised it's like a fursona, but this guy actually just has his genuine
It's
like
just
self in
him.
it. I'm so surprised. But as soon as he sent me it and I saw that, I was like, oh, I already know his opinion's gonna be bad.
How close do you think that's the way he looks in real life?
Oh god, no. Like he's trying to give himself some leeway to make us think like, oh, it's accurate because
He's
he
being
made himself a little
flattering.
huskier.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's making himself a little huskier, but he still has like the big anime eyes and the perfect like coiffed hair. Like, no.
He's trying to, yeah, he's giving himself the cool little dad bod. He's trying to look approachable
Yep.
and friendly. This
Yep.
is the
And
loading crew.
yeah, and he mentioned in the video that he's 32, and I was like, Jesus, like you're 32 and you're analyzing Helluva Boss this hard. Like,
And
listen,
you're
I
wrong
can't speak
about
for
it.
yeah. Like, listen, I can't speak for what I'm gonna be like when I'm 32, but I don't think I will be shitting on shows that are geared towards a bit of a younger audience. Not that much younger than 32, but then I don't know. Like, you have nothing better to do, buddy.
But hey, you know, it's
But
33
again,
minutes
there's always
long.
gonna be haters.
How far did you
Yep.
get? I made it about
I
5
watched the whole
minutes in.
thing.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh. Oh, I thought like, yeah, no, I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just curious. I wanted to go in like semi-blind. I like to give myself a little
Gotcha.
teaser and then go in blind for this show. But just
yeah, I like to. Sorry, go ahead.
you like to know what you're getting into, you were gonna say?
I do. Yeah, I like to have a bit of a formulated opinion, but I think because I want to see it again to like reaffirm what I thought was true the first time, you know what I mean?
Sure. You know, 33 minutes without spoiling anything. Does he make a single good point?
Honestly, he gets worse as it goes on. There's like one or two in the very
I thought it was bad in the beginning.
there's one or exactly. I think there's one or two in the like earlier like time slots, not the very beginning, but like in the beginning that I'm like, okay, I see where he's coming from. But then as it goes on, I'm like, you're literally talking in circles, and I have no idea what you're trying to say.
All right then. So this is about season 2, episode 1, The Circus, and I rewatched it into preparation. But let's see.
Before we begin, I ask that you watch the entire video before you comment. There's a lot of context I would like to go over, and I have a lot of complicated feelings about this episode. Based on the reviews that I have seen, I realize that I am in fact in the minority here, and my thoughts on this episode will probably be seen as controversial. I know this video is going to make me the bad guy of the community, and frankly, that's fine. I've seen a lot of success with my previous Helluva Boss and Hazbin videos, where I often have major disagreements with a good chunk of the community, and most of the time you guys at least understand my point of view, and another good chunk of the time I end up being...
Is that... Okay, I was wondering where the music was coming from. It is the video. It's just really loud.
Yeah, just on his end, but all good.
Right? Instagram. However, before we begin, and speaking of being a bad guy, we have a sponsor. And I'll give you 2 guesses. This video is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. But Stuart, I don't want to play Raid right now. There's nothing new. Quiet, you uneducated alignment denier. Raid has tons of new things, and this month they include the Forge Pass Season 3, which includes a limited edition artifact set. Raid is
There's
also
a QR
offering
code,
limited
guys,
edition
so if you
champion
play.
skins, including these really nice pieces for
Get
Madame
your phones out.
Cerise. Also, Death Knight's coming! Ultimate Death Knight! Hype! Now is the best time to get started in Raid, and if you click on my link in the description, you'll get unique bonuses worth up to $30, including Epic Champion Tyrell, 200,000 silver, 1 energy refill, 1 EXP boost, and 1 ancient shard so you could summon.
I tried to skip ahead. There we go.
In this episode with you, assuming that you've seen all of the Helluva Boss so far. That means episodes 1 through 7 and season 2, episode 1. I should specify, of course, that I have no problems with anyone liking this episode. It's a genuinely gorgeous one with lots of great animation moments. It's also straight up just one of the funniest ones. The Stolas misunderstanding is very funny in the sense of how raunchy it actually gets. This is classic ecchi comedy, and of course the voice cast delivers it with the excellence that you've come to expect. But right away,
I didn't hear the ecchi comedy bit. I think I was like skipping around, but that was so cringe.
Oh yeah, again, millennial vibes.
Yeah. Let's keep going.
as the episode begins, you can tell that things are just a little bit different, and as it unfolds, I know I wasn't the only one feeling that scratching in the back of my head. Like, this is not a normal episode of Helluva Boss. Everything is just kind of off and just a little bit wrong. I know I wasn't the only one feeling this either. A lot of my friends, once the initial new episode bliss wore off, felt that this episode just didn't hit quite right. If you felt...
I'm curious, what did you think watching this for the first time? The episode?
I'll be so real. Like, there are some episodes in the series that aren't my favorite. Like, I know this is unpopular, but I don't love the episode when they go to Lululand. It's good.
There's only a few that I've rewatched, so I don't really remember.
That's episode 2 in the series.
Yeah, I haven't rewatched.
Yeah, I think that one. The only interesting one, like, storyline in that one, in my opinion, is Octavia and Stolas' relationship gets explored a bit more, and like 𝗬𝗎𝗪 gets introduced. But other than that, and then I don't love the fourth one, but I think that's pretty much everybody's least favorite episode is the fourth one in the series with the cherubs.
Oh, I like that one.
Really?
I like that
that's
one quite a bit. I
interesting.
think it's funny.
I like it because it feels like a filler, but it's definitely probably my least favorite besides the Lululand one. But I loved this episode when I first watched it. I mean, I was just excited to get new content, so maybe that was why, but I really enjoyed it the first time I saw it.
Me too. I thought it was cute.
I thought it was too, and I really, like, he goes on to, like, explain what he thinks about it, but in my opinion, I really liked that they show that Blitz and 𝗬𝗎𝗪 were friends first and, like, had their own little circus act.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for, like, flashback episodes in general, especially when they're done really well. And
I feel the same way.
I thought this one was, I thought it hit different in a good way, if anything.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, but I know that's not everybody's favorite, and he goes on to explain that he doesn't like that himself, but I'm in the same boat. I love episodes like this.
Even rewatching it, I appreciate just Stolas as a character even more. I think he's up there as one of my favorites.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I'm again gonna get probably some hate if anybody who actually watches Helluva Boss watches this. I don't love Blitz and Stolas' relationship. It's definitely not my favorite of the series. I don't mind it. It's funny. Definitely, like, very funny, but there are some things about it I don't like, and I still liked this episode, and I still think Stolas and Blitz are really great characters.
It's funny that you mentioned that because what I don't like about their relationship is that it's always played for laughs. And this episode and the last one, they started playing it more seriously, and I'm like, oh, I like this.
Exactly. I was just gonna say, episode 7 is my favorite episode of the entire series, and I like that they showed that like depth in between their relationship. Like it's not just them like of course at first it was just funny because like he was kind of using Blitz and we didn't
Yeah,
see that background and get that context. We just got the whole, oh, I use him for his book and he uses me for my body. But then as time goes on, you realize Stolas actually has been developing feelings for Blitz, and Blitz, you would think he wouldn't, but he gets like upset. And you see in episode 7 when they're in God, his
Ozzy's.
name is Ozzy's, yes, excuse me, Ozzy's, and they're sitting across from each other and he's embarrassed to be with Blitz. You can see Blitz's face, like how
He's
much
hurt.
pain he's in.
Yeah,
Yes, I really liked that. Like it showed more, it gave it more nuance. Like I was like, okay, now I'm starting to take an interest in their relationship, and I started actually liking it there.
yeah, a lot of twists and turns in their relationship in that episode,
Yeah.
and that last bit
And
where he basically tells him like, yo, you and me, there's nothing between us, we just have sex.
yeah,
And he goes home and he cries. He
yeah,
obviously felt bad about telling him that.
yeah, and you can see how hurt Stolas is. And when Blitz like criticizes him because he always called him Blitzy, and he was like, "Can you just say my name normally?" After that, he stops calling him that. Like you can tell they genuinely
He
have a
cares.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both care. And that's when it started getting interesting. Like when it was just like Stolas being like inappropriate to Blitz at first, it was not that interesting. But now that they have this background, and I liked that they showed them knowing each other as children. And the guy in the video that we're about to watch goes on to explain why he didn't enjoy that. And I really am excited to talk about this because
Yeah.
his opinions I feel the exact opposite of. Like I'm like, no, I
His
don't agree
take,
with that at all.
there's one take. I don't know if we're talking about the same one, but I'm really, really interested to talk about it.
I'm sure we're talking about the same one, or at least a similar one. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it. But I loved that they showed them as friends as children. I think it gave even more context and more like there's a more depth to their relationship now. It's not just a business transaction.
Yeah, I guess we'll see when we get there. But like the first time Stolas appears and he's making all these sexual jokes, it was like it was okay at first, but then like that's their gimmick every time they're on screen together. So I'm just like, okay, it's getting kind of old now. What are
Mm-hmm.
we doing? Who are these two characters like to each other really?
Mm-hmm.
And they finally started exploring that. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stolas is a great guy, but we can
Yeah.
talk about that more as we go on.
Yeah, I also think from the very first episode, Stolas just changes completely. Like I know his voice actor changes, but he goes from again
Really?
just like somebody who yeah, in the very first like episode, his voice actor is completely different, and
Didn't
again
know
his
that.
whole demeanor changes. Yeah, because at first it's just him like again all you hear is him like cursing profanities and sexual things at Blitz over the phone, and you're like, ugh, who is this guy? Like that
Yeah.
Blitz is sleeping with. But then as time goes on, and you see, like, yeah, Stolas is kind of sexual, but you can tell he also is a person with feelings, and he has a kid, which just adds so much more context to
He
his
has
character.
depth
And
to
I
him.
really, yeah,
Because I used to get annoyed
interesting.
whenever he gets on screen, actually.
Yeah, me too at first. I was like, ugh, this guy's annoying. But then as time went on, I started liking him. And again, like, I didn't like their relationship at first either. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but as time is going on, I'm starting to gain an appreciation
It's
for it.
compelling. I want to see more.
Absolutely.
Like season 2 just seemed a little bit off to you and you can't quite pinpoint it, this video is actually for you. And if you're just an angry fan who wants to flame me for having the wrong opinion, I ask that you at least hear out my wrong opinion first before leaving your comment.
Will do.
I never have any issues with people disagreeing with me, and I welcome discourse, but if you're gonna just pop in and start angry typing without bringing up any of my points, I'm just gonna heart your comments so others can see how much of a problem it is when fervent fans lash out for no reason. I really don't have a better way of breaking down my points except by going step by step through the episode and beat by beat, and I'll have to explain this almost point by point because if you put all of what's happening into this episode, it's kind of a mess. And if you put any thought into the episode, especially compared to what we've been told before, it does fall apart. This episode starts with Stolas when he was like 10 years old or so, and he was handed his destiny by his cold and distant father as a studier of astrology and prophecy, and he must serve hell by gathering data about the mortal world and their stars. He then reveals that Stolas is now engaged to Stella, and Stolas starts crying immediately, and Paimon takes him to a circus to feel better. They go to the show, and his father notices that Stolas seems to like the worst clown and offers to buy him just right away. There's a ton of conflicting information. First, this is an easy nitpick that is honestly the least egregious problem, but I need to ask, why did you make Paimon an owl? In the Goetia, Paimon is described as an old man riding a donkey. I mean, obviously he's a greater demon and he can change his form to suit the situation, sure, but he literally gives so little shits about his own children that he doesn't remember Stolas' name, and he doesn't realize that he's the owl one until well after he manifested himself. Here, play the audio.
Which son is this one?
There's so fucking many.
Stolas, your highness.
Stolas! Yes! right. That's the one. The owl boy.
The order of these events is just weird and kinda off, and it feels like the script needed another draft. Also, the dialogue here implies that he sees his children as an obligation or even a burden.
Do you have anything to comment on his design? Because I don't.
I was just gonna say yes, I do. Not in agreement of the guy, but in I don't agree with his point at all. Because he had that issue with Paimon, but did he not have an issue with Asmodeus' design? Because Asmodeus, yeah, they show him with the two heads next to him like he usually does. He has like a three-headed demon in like his actual lore, but in Ozzy's design in Helluva Boss, they're just like teeny tiny formed heads. Like you can't tell if they're an animal or whatever.
Yeah.
But actual Asmodeus has like, I think it's a cow or bull and a lamb or a ram head. But they're not shown on Asmodeus's design. They're just little non-descriptive figures in his design. So why didn't you have an issue with that? And not only that, but in Paimon, when he's first introduced, like I know he mentions it, but he takes on a couple different forms before he settles on this owl design.
Yes, he does.
And
he plays the clip.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, I don't like it. He doesn't even know who Stolas is, yet already formed into an owl. And it's like, yeah, he has a lot of kids, but who's to say the majority of them aren't owls?
That's what I was going to say. We don't know the other kids. They might not all be owls. In fact, I think it's very much implied he's the only one. He says the owl boy.
Yeah, but the guy who made the video, what's his name again?
TheLoadingCrew. We'll call him TLC.
TLC. TLC says, he's like, well, I hate that he goes into owl form before he even sees Stolas, and he's like, oh, which one is this? Without knowing. Like, he was like, oh, how would he know he's an owl if he doesn't even know who he is? And it's like, also, who's to say that he wasn't in that form before Stolas got in there? You see him physically change into it. So
yeah, this might just be the form he decided on today.
Yeah, and if he sees that Stolas is an owl, he's gonna change into an owl right in front of him. Or maybe the imp that was like, wagering in, he was like, hey, this is the owl boy, change into an owl. And then as soon as he gets in there, he's like, wait, who is this again? Because he doesn't give a shit, but he just remembers being told transform into an owl.
Yeah, this criticism confuses me because I think he's like, why is he confused as to who Stolas is when he's the owl? It's like, I think he would also, because it's possible he just doesn't know his name either. That might have been what he meant. Which one is this?
Yeah, I don't think he meant like, oh, he's an owl. Ha ha ha. I think he just meant, oh, his name is Stolas.
Yeah, weird criticism. As for his design, I don't really have anything to say because I don't know shit about like owl lore or whatever lore he's following. But I don't think.
Yeah.
I will say I don't think Helluva Boss is supposed to be like biblically accurate or whatever.
No, I know because Vivian does her own takes on all of their designs. Like the Ars Goetia, I think they are owl like I don't want to say owl coded, but like that's what I
Owl
mean.
coded.
That's all I could think of to say it.
Excuse you, person of owl, please.
Yeah, the Ars Goetia, I think they um well actually I don't know. I think there's different ones because there's like just a shit ton of them in the Ars Goetia, and one of their forms happens to be an owl. So I don't fucking know. It's a lot. And again, I think Vivian just takes her own interpretation of the demons. Like it's not supposed to be completely accurate, but it's she like I like that
And
she
she's
nods to things.
under obligation to be.
Yeah, she can put her own artistic like spin on things. Like I liked Osmodeus' design because again, it's not completely accurate. He looks nothing like the actual version of Osmodeus. Like if you Google an image of him right now, he just looks like some creepy being with three heads. But like Vivian turned him into something like sleek and cool
It's
because he's
more
the,
fun.
you know, yeah, and the embodiment of lust. Like so but I liked that she still nodded to the three heads thing. Like little details like that are interesting. But I'm not pissed that the heads aren't completely accurate, you know?
Yeah, she's like, she can take liberties with these things. Like, even hell itself, like, let's be honest, this is just Earth, but like with a red coat of paint.
And the guy actually, TLC mentions that in his video. He's like, I don't like how human coded these demons are. Like,
The demons can be coded to whatever the hell Vivian wants them to be. Like,
yeah.
it's to make them relatable to us. Like, these are demons going through like human conflicts that we can understand.
Yeah. He straight up says that though. He's like, it's too that like hell in Vivian's world is too human, and it's like it can be if she wants it to be. Who gives a
It's
shit?
allowed to be. She's under no obligation to like represent these places. Who of any of us know what hell is supposed to look like anyway?
Yeah, exactly.
When you look at like Hades, the game, like I think the circles of hell, they actually get like more brutal as you go up. And like the very bottom, like Tartarus, is almost like civilized by comparison. And that's just because like Hades is running it and he's very like fastidious, he's very detail oriented. And it's neat because it's like Hades' character informs the world and the world informs Hades' character. It's like world building and character work at the same time. It's really good. But and then you go up to Elysium and it's almost like ethereal, but it has like all these souls who are just cursed to fight until they die and they're reborn again. It's like it's described as a horrible place. Like there's a guy who lives there and he actually wishes to be like at the bottom.
And in Vivian's version of hell, I think it's the opposite. I think the higher up you are, the more like brutal and better it is, and then the lower you go, the like worse it gets, and
Yeah.
the like yeah. So I think again, it's just her interpretation of it, and he's totally valid in his opinion. Like he doesn't have to like her interpretation of it, but that doesn't mean she's wrong.
That doesn't make
you
it
know?
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have to like it, but there's nothing wrong with other people liking it. And I know he says that in the video. Like he's like, "Oh, you guys are entitled to disagree with me," and it's like, "Well, this is just us disagreeing."
This is one of the examples of us disagreeing. If you point out one of the reasons why the world is inconsistent, like we did last week with Harry Potter, you know, we can have that discussion. But it seems in line to me. I haven't noticed anything off.
No, I agree.
Like if you want to make a world where like hell is heaven and heaven is hell, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm on board. That's your interpretation.
Yeah, why not?
these events is just weird and kind of off, and it feels like the script needed another draft. Also, the dialogue here implies that he sees his children as an obligation or even a burden, and he's just kind of apathetic to them. Yet he takes the effort to not only to take Stolas to a lengthy day-long activity, he also notices when Stolas has a fascination with Blitzo, and he goes to the effort to buy him because he knows Stolas doesn't have any friends.
Okay.
So let's talk about human beings.
Okay, thank God you paused it, because I was like, I have something to say about this.
Go ahead.
Not only is he not physically there with Stolas, he has an imp take him, so that argument's out, where he's like, he spent the whole day with him. No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
He's not even physically there because he doesn't want to be around, like, the poor people. And yeah, he's in the mirror or whatever, like, projecting himself and watching everything that's happening with Stolas, but he didn't care about him enough to physically go there with him. He hates imps more than he cares about his son. So yeah,
That's
he doesn't
one.
care about him.
And then two, Stolas doesn't want to go to the circus.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice he starts crying and he's like, stop crying. Okay, that doesn't work. Circus, kids like those, right? I'll take you to the circus. And again, he doesn't physically show up.
Yeah, and he didn't even say, like, Stolas wasn't like, oh, I love the circus, like, I want to go. Like, he's
miserable.
Just like, oh, yeah, he was like, what can I do to get this thing to stop crying?
Yeah, I like that too, because it mirrors when he took his daughter to Lululand.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a reverse.
Mm-hmm.
But
and
yeah, parents can do good things for bad reasons. He's clearly, the thing to remember is he's not doing this for Stolas' benefit. This is for his benefit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what was the other point the guy said? I forget.
That he buys
like,
bullets.
Yes. And it's like, how was that seen as a good fatherly thing? That was him saying, here, let me buy this lowly imp for you to play with so I don't have to deal with you.
Yeah, man. I think we talked about this because I was looking at comments for the episode, and people were saying like, oh, why are people saying he's a bad parent? He's not a bad parent. He did all these things. It's like, yeah, he did them for very selfish reasons. He doesn't want to have to deal with his child being emotional after learning that he's meant to be engaged to someone he doesn't even know. So he's shelling out all this money so, you know, he can give him distractions and not have to deal with his child. He doesn't care.
He has someone else take him. He has a servant take him to the circus and then buys a kid for him for the day so he doesn't have to deal with him being emotional.
Yeah, I'm just lost that this guy's like, is he a good parent or a bad parent? Which is it? It's like, are you paying attention?
Yeah, like, and even so, is this what matters? Like, who cares? He's a demon. He's not supposed to be a good parent. So why are you like, actually, he is a good parent because he spent the day with him and bought him a slave? Buddy.
He is a bad parent, though. Like, I think that's made very clear. He buys Blitz, and you could be like, well, he was willing to pay money. It's like, the 𝐒𝐿𝐻 family is super rich. I think he can shell out some money. Money is not an
issue.
Yeah, here's some money to make my kid stop crying. And then they end up selling Blitz for dirt cheap anyway. Yeah, and just to clarify, because someone could be like, well, what about Legend of Korra? You complained about, like, the gang being bad parents in that show. No, the complaint was more that they were out of character, not necessarily that they were bad parents, especially Katara. Like,
we never even said they were bad parents. We said that we think that they were taken out of context and that they were good parents.
Yeah, we think it would be in character for them to be good parents. Like, if Azula grew up and she had kids, I can see her being a bad parent. I wouldn't criticize that.
Yep. And again, you're allowed to say, like, hey, this guy sucked as a parent. You don't have to be, like, making these, like, little things into it. Like, being like, oh, why are you guys calling him a bad parent? He did he bought him a slave. He did the bare minimum. And it's like, bro, what?
Yeah.
And he didn't even do that. He did it to not deal with him, not because he cares. And that's so obvious if you just listen to the dialogue.
So yeah, like, again, you can say he's a bad parent. I'd be right there with you. But, like, that's not a criticism. That's his character.
Yep.
He's not even inconsistent about it. Like, he's consistently shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I gotta ask, is Paimon a bad father or is he not?
It's not binary. That's the main point. It's not one or the other.
I don't think he's that deep here. This is just really bad conveyance, and I don't understand what they're trying to get across with him. Next, we see a moment of Blitzo and 𝗬𝗨𝗧𝗨 as kids, and they're vaguely setting up, I don't want to call it foreshadowing, because the armless, legless horse reference is just a fact that 𝗬𝗨𝗧𝗨 lost his arms and legs later, but...
I kind of missed that. I didn't really understand what this scene was trying to convey. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I missed that too. I mean, I guess like when he says that, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But like, I think that was just like a little like context thing. Like, I don't think that was anything important. I think that was just like a nod to like, oh, he does lose his arms and legs later, but has nothing to do with the actual content.
And then the other part that stood out to me was that like 𝗬𝗨𝗧𝗨 doesn't like Blitz talking about pirates. Is that like, did I miss something?
Yeah, I don't know why. Because I think TLT goes on to explain that like Blitz mentions pirates a lot in his Instagram story or posts with back when characters had Instagram accounts. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know what the pirate thing has to do with anything just yet.
All right.
We learned that Blitzo has a fascination with pirates, which is weird to introduce into season 2 because we've never seen him care about that in season 1. I think on the Instagram he's mentioned pirates a few times, but he's way more interested in horses. Sure. Then Blitzo's father comes in to guilt him into stealing stuff from the royal house so that he could feed his family.
Is he not allowed to have
this,
multiple interests?
Yeah, that's so weird. It's like, you're interested in horses or pirates? Pick one.
Yeah. He was like, he likes pirates out of nowhere? Sure.
This is a plot hole.
Like, no, he's a character.
Earlier he said he was interested in horses.
So now he can't like pirates because it's never been mentioned before. But then he goes, oh wait, actually it has been mentioned before in Instagram. So it's like, first of all, not only does he not need context to like something, but two, he disproves his own point by saying, oh, actually it was like shown on the Instagram, which was like created by the people who work on the show.
Oh no, man.
Sure. Then Blitzo's father comes in to guilt him into stealing stuff from the royal house so that he could feed his family. After this, the two meet, bond a little, and have a play date while Blitzo steals stuff from the house. Blitzo and Stolas have this bonding moment that's totally taken from Fox and the Hound, like, we'll always be together, won't we, Todd? Yes, we will.
That's not what the conversation was about.
They
were talking
just
about what
were
they
having
want to
a
do
fun
when they're older.
time. Yeah. And he's just like, oh, I'm sure you will. He's not like, and I'll be there by your side.
Yeah, the most they say, like, in relation to each other is Blitz says, like, I'll hire you when I start my own company. And Solus is like, you'll hire me? He's like, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, and Solus is just laughing because he knows that, like, he's never going to work for an imp. Like, he already knows about his class. Like, but he was just
like, a thing that kids do.
Yeah, he was just playing around with this kid for the day. He wasn't like, oh, yes, I will work for you because we're going to be friends together in X amount of years. That was not his implication. He's a kid.
Anyway.
Copper, and obviously they're foreshadowing other things, but let's just move on. The decision to make these two childhood friends is just really weird. It's schlocky anime level writing that really limits the setting in hell. It makes the world building seem really small if these two characters met this early in life. Also, this is skipping.
Why?
Yeah, I had no problem with them being friends at first. I honestly thought it made their relationship more interesting.
It makes them more intimate.
Yeah, and it gives like a better context to their power dynamic.
How does it make the world feel small if someone who's really important and someone who's not that important knew each other as kids?
Yeah. Like, of course everybody knows about the 𝗓𝗏𝗄𝐈𝐀, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and if Blitz was in a pretty popular circus act at the time that was going from ring to ring performing, how is it so
They could have crossed
foreign?
paths at some point.
That's what I'm saying. How is it so foreign that they cross each other's paths? Now, if he had just met Blitz like on the street in the middle of nowhere, I'd be like, okay, I'd agree with his point.
Even
I feel
that,
like.
yeah, that would be like, okay, what a coincidence.
Yeah, that would be too much of a coincidence, and I'd honestly be on his side there. But if he's in a traveling circus that's pretty darn popular, is it that insane to think that they might have met, or like Stolas might have seen him perform? Especially considering how famous 𝐓𝗢𝗨𝗧𝗨𝗕 goes on to become.
Yeah, I don't know. It all lines up to me.
Same here.
Ahead a bit, but I want to mention that this episode establishes that Stolas is somewhere in his mid-30s. I can't stress how little that actually makes sense from not only a lore perspective, but it's just a bad idea. I should mention that Stolas is mentioned in the Lesser Key of Solomon, which is a real-world book that was written in the mid-1700s, implying that he should at least be a few centuries old by the time the series begins. If he was important enough to be mentioned in this ancient book where his powers are well established and he kind of understood what he can do, that means by the time the Ars Goetia was written, he must have at least been a few centuries old to be that powerful to be mentioned. Must be
Well, this is not that Stolas. Again, this is an interpretation thing.
Yeah, and honestly, the age thing doesn't really bother me because I think that's kind of insignificant. And TLC does go on to mention that it like ruins his character because in one of the songs Stolas sings, he mentions like kind of not like how old he is, but like how he's been through a lot of experiences in life. And he's like, well, if he's only 33, that's young. So even in like, human world, that's young. And I'm like, who's to say a 33-year-old couldn't go through hard times?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he doesn't have to be old to have experienced a lot in his life, even if it is young.
And what does it really change if he's like several hundred years old?
I really, like, to me, I don't care about age like that as, like...
I don't give a single shit.
Yeah, like, I don't care that he's 33. In my opinion, the only place where ages matter is in relationships that are depicted.
I thought that's where he was going with this.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Blitz is in his late 20s, so that doesn't even matter.
Age. Yeah.
Yeah. Or because I think Luna mentions something about, I forget whose age, Moxie's or Millie's, like says like, oh yeah, Millie is, like she says like Millie's only a couple years older than her, and I think it's implied that Luna's like 20 in the series, 21, right?
She said she was adopted at 18, so I imagine she's in her 20s.
Yeah, because it's obviously not the first year that Blitz has had her.
Correct.
So she has to be in her 20s at least, which implies that Moxie and Millie, which I'm assuming they're the same age, are probably in their mid-20s or late 20s. Like, I would think they were like 25, 26, especially because they're married,
Yeah, I assume the late 20s for them.
Yeah, me too. So, I personally, as long as, like, age it only matters to me in context of characters in relationships. Like, unless they have some minor dating someone who's old, then I will care about the age difference, like the ages of these characters. I'll be like, whoa, okay, this isn't cool, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just for some random like tidbit, who gives a shit,
Yeah, this doesn't make a difference. Like, if Vivian came out and said like Stolas is actually 700, I'd be like, okay.
I'd be like, yeah, sure, who gives a shit? And then if he's like, oh, actually he's 33, okay, cool. But then, but then if she was like, oh, actually I've decided he's like 17, I would be like, okay, that's weird considering we know Blitz is older than that.
We have a problem now.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only context, in my opinion, where I feel like it should matter, unless of course there's like continuity error where they're like, oh, he's 30, and then later on they're like, oh, he's 33, but no time has passed. That's when it would also matter. But in this context, who gives a shit?
Yeah, the age changes nothing about the character, so.
Yep.
Millions upon millions of demons in hell. Why mention Stolas if he wasn't already powerful by the time that book was written? And we know that Helluva Boss takes place in the modern age because we know it takes place at the same time.
They might not have that book in the Helluva Boss universe. Have you thought of that?
Yeah.
Hazbin Hotel. Vaggie dies somewhere in like 2012 or 2014 or something, and humans have cell phones and the internet. And we know that Helluva Boss is canon to Hazbin Hotel because the pilot plays Charlie's music video, and they've said it dozens of times behind the scene. You cannot handwave such an obviously bad decision and just go, oh, this is Vizzy's universe, who cares? Because making Stolas 35 severely diminishes his importance in the world that they're establishing. It makes the setting seem really small and way less significant. If demons are considered old at 35, because he mentioned several times in the show that he feels old,
You show your age.
what does that say about your setting?
That is not him complaining about his age. That's not him lamenting the fact he's old.
Mm-hmm. And again, who's to say that he doesn't feel old at 33?
Yeah,
I feel old at 23 sometimes, and I know that's a ridiculous statement, but he's entitled to say that if he feels old in that moment. You know what I mean?
That's how I interpret it as. I feel like he's like, man, I've had the experience of someone who's like twice my age, and I'm only 33.
Exactly. That's how I saw it too.
Come back to this. And this whole childhood friends section is just really painful to watch. I know a lot of my distastes here are personal preference, and for sure, if you want to like this, that's absolutely valid. You're allowed to like it, but it seems a little desperate from a creator standpoint to dedicate such a long stretch of your episode to showing your characters being really young and innocent. It is like begging for sympathy points when you
So here's that point that I was talking about.
Gotcha.
If you have an extended flashback with your main characters as kids, it's the creator begging for sympathy for that character.
Nah.
I'm gonna assume this guy doesn't like Zuko alone, because that has a lot of flashbacks with Zuko as a kid.
Yeah, I think it honestly, I know, a lot of people say that they're like, oh, characters don't have to suffer. Like, they don't have to go through traumatic things as children to be, interesting and, give them whatever. And it's like, yeah, I agree with that. But also, I don't have a problem with him having a shitty childhood. I feel like most characters and most shows do. And I don't mind that it gives characters more story or, nuance or whatever. That doesn't bother me. I see his point. He doesn't enjoy it, but, who cares,
Yeah, it's just the begging for sympathy bit that really confuses me, because it's when I watch this, I know Stolas is kind of a piece of shit, and not Stolas, Blitz, he's kind of a piece of shit in the current day. Seeing this doesn't make me think he's less of a piece of shit. I just kind of understand him better.
Yeah.
This was just, and Stolas, this was one day in his childhood where he had a really good time with this boy that he met, and it informs a lot about how he views relationships, and he fantasizes about that day, and he uses it to sort of romanticize what a relationship should be like. And it shows a big contrast, because Blitz was very innocent back in the day, and it helps current day Blitz stand out so much more. And then Stolas, he's someone who he loves his daughter to death, but her happiness is contingent upon him being with this woman who hates him. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea that you shouldn't do flashback episodes because it's manipulative. It's huh?
What? Yeah, I don't mind it. I liked it, and again, he's entitled to his opinion of not liking it, but
yeah,
it just
if he
feels
doesn't like it, that's fine. But
just
that's not all he said.
Yeah, it kind of feels like he's grasping at straws at times.
Show your characters like this. Also, as fellow YouTuber, I think I'm going to say this right, Heizu Neutral points out in her review, Stolas may have fallen in love at first sight with Blitzo, and if he did, that's a little weird. It's not terribly uncommon for children to form crushes around 10 years old, but personally I interpreted this as Stolas not being sure how to talk to another kid. But if the show was trying to communicate that he formed an early childhood crush, it's not a good look, and it adds a lot to the schlockiness. It comes off as trying too hard to justify their relationship more in the eyes of the viewers. Again, I'll talk about...
I don't think it's trying to
Anything to say about
justify.
that?
Yeah, I don't think it's trying to justify anything. I don't think it's trying to be like, oh, look, this is why they treat each other like shit or like use each other because they've known each other for so long. I think it gives their relationship more context. Like, it's even deeper than we once thought because now we know that they've known each other for a long time.
Yeah, I really didn't understand this bit. I was lost.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like they haven't known each other throughout the whole time. Like they say, like, oh, I haven't seen you in 20 years. But it shows that, like, at one point in time, they knew each other.
Yeah, and then he says, if he had a crush on him at first sight, that's really weird. And then he goes on to say it's not uncommon for 10-year-olds to form crushes at that time. It's like you just refuted your own point.
Yeah. Trying to be like, oh, this kid can't be in love with this other kid. And it's like, yeah, kids don't know what like being in love is like, but your point
He
was,
had a
yeah, he has a
crush.
crush. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with him having a crush. I don't think it was love at first sight. Again, they were children. Like he just said, I agree with that point. There's no way they were in love, but what's wrong with him having a crush? He's just a kid, you know? Like it's innocent. It's not like she was implying he wanted to have sex with him at that age. That would be weird. He was just,
No
you know,
way.
he thought he was cute, and that's normal. Like kids can have crushes and think other kids are cute, you know?
I could even see it as like he had a squish on him where he like saw him and be like, I want to be his friend.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then as for how he said like it was poorly conveyed, I don't know. He blushes every time Blitz is in the room. I don't think you need much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was lost here.
Yeah, same.
About it later, but Blitz and Stolas' relationship was way more interesting before this episode began. Also, this is 100%
Oh,
a funny
nah,
little
I don't agree. Now we're in new territory. I haven't seen past that part. But man,
Gotcha.
I think it started getting interesting with this episode.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it started getting interesting
With
with
Aussies,
episodes.
technically.
Yes, with Aussies, and then with this one.
Oh man, let's hear him out.
pick. But this scene right here makes no sense. This scene where at this moment they walk in and they do this little camera spin. There's a moment where two kids are in the center of this magical chandelier or something, and they're standing in the middle, and the camera spins around and they cheer and hoot and holler like they're on a roller coaster. Can you imagine walking in on this as an outsider, seeing these two little psychopaths standing in the middle of...
I tell you exactly what I'd say. I'd be like, "Oh, they're having fun," and then I keep going, cause they're kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think I see what he's saying. Like they're acting like they're spinning when it's actually the camera spinning, but like in reality, they're just standing there and they're hooting and hollering. I still think that's fine.
Yeah, they're kids. They're just having fun.
Yeah.
a room, looking in opposite directions and laughing like they're having the time of their lives. I mean, me and my buddy Justin did that all the time. It's just a little game we play, I guess. I know it's a trope, and I know it's a nitpick, but that's silly. We then cut to 25 years later, and no, I will not let that go. Why did you make him so young? It completely demolishes the song that he sang to 𝐒𝐃𝐈𝐿 in episode 2. He says the words,
Now all my stories have been told, except for one.
dude, what the fuck are you talking about? You had...
It is not wrong for him to sing that at 30 or whatever age he is here. It is fine.
At any point in your life, you can feel like you've lived a long time, or like you've had so many experiences that it's almost over. Do you know what I mean?
As early as like 17, I'd say you can have like crises.
Some people are just like, let's be real, suicidal. Like, That's what the vibe I was getting, honestly.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot to live for until Octavia comes along, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly.
She is the reason he's staying in that marriage.
Yeah,
And
and
he's still miserable.
exactly. And because of that, like feeling that way for so long, of course you're going to feel older than you are. That will age you a shit ton, especially feeling depressed like that.
No stories. You're young by human standards, especially when the scene begins. Because if she's 17, he's got to be like 20 something by that point. I know I sometimes joke like I'm an old man, but I'm 32 and I still feel like I have a lot of life left to experience. I know a big chunk of Helluva Boss fans are children and teenagers, but trust me, you guys don't know anything about anything. I'm sure this seems like dinosaur age to you, but your 30s are basically a second set of teenage years. Trust me, it ain't that bad, especially if you diet and exercise well.
Maybe for
anyway,
you,
we go.
man.
Yeah, not everybody's experiences are the same.
Like, I don't know
It's
what
just-
else to say. Like, you're talking about yourself.
You maybe, like, this is just an assumption, but maybe he hasn't been through things that would make him feel older than he is, but
That's what I would
Also-
assume.
yeah, but also not because again, I don't know his life, but that's what he's kind of seems like he's implying. But it's not like he's arranged married to somebody he doesn't love, and had the only reason he's alive and staying around, in my opinion, is for a child. I'm sure he would feel a lot older then.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, like, Stolas' 30s is very different from yours, my good man.
And also, he is a fictional character. He's allowed to have some nonsensical feelings.
Yeah. But they're not, though. Like, they're very much
Yeah.
informed.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But if his whole point is like, it doesn't make any sense, okay, he's also a fictional character.
Yeah.
Go into the future, 25 years, I guess. And just a bit, we learn that Stolas is depressed.
I will say I have a criticism for this episode, and the timeline was very confusing to me. I didn't know when anything took place. I know 25 years later was... I didn't know... Okay, was this post-Aussies? Is this, like, before the series? I had to look at the wiki. I know this point is post-Aussies, but even that I only know by looking at the wiki. I wonder if he's going to talk about that.
Guess we'll find out.
Takes medication for it. I didn't know Hell had antidepressants, and is in a blatantly abusive relationship where his wife...
This version of Hell does deal with it.
Can't cope.
I'm getting real tired of these world building criticisms. Like, this is what Hell is like in this story. I'm sorry.
And it's the most insignificant little details. Like, oh, wouldn't, like, the citizens or, like, the leaders of Hell want their citizens to be depressed? Who cares if they do or don't?
Don't think so.
I don't think they give a shit. They're like, if you're depressed, go for it. But I think I actually watched a different video of somebody who was like going into detail about the world building in Helluva Boss and mentioned those antidepressants and how I forget which which deadly sin of hell distributes them, but they said the reason he's doing that is to make money. It's just like big pharma. They don't care if you're sick or not. They just want to make money off of you, and I think that's pretty canonical for Hell.
I think if anyone would have antidepressants in this world, it would be the ruler. Doesn't he? Isn't he the ruler of Hell? He's the prince of Hell.
He's not the ruler. He is a prince, because the ruler is Charlie from Hazbin Hotel's dad, Lucifer, and yeah, because you haven't seen Hazbin, have you?
No.
Yeah, that's they add a lot more context to the hierarchy, because it's Lucifer, and I think her name is Lilith, they're Charlie's parents, and they're the queen and king of Hell, and then their daughter Charlie, who Hazbin Hotel is about, she's the princess of all of Hell, whereas the Ars Goetia, they just have princes and princesses in Hell. They're not of Hell.
All right, fair enough. And just to finish here, like, Stolas could have gotten those antidepressants from the human world. Just saying.
Yeah. but it's canonical that one of the seven deadly sins is distributing them. And again, that's just
Oh, there you go.
capitalism. He's just trying to make money, and that feels like a very hell thing.
Yeah. So there are explanations for this, and the creator's not even obligated to give one, which he still did.
If publicly humiliates him for breakfast. Thanks to this episode, we learned that Stolas is the victim of a devastating relationship, and like, that also contradicts the earlier episode. We learned in episode 2 from
Wait, what? Are
He
you saying
goes
this is
on.
the first time we've learned he's in an abusive relationship?
No, this is where I think he starts talking in circles, because he makes this point now. I think we need to watch for a little bit before we start talking about this, because he keeps going on and on and on about it. But then he brings it back up again towards the end and is again talking in circles. But I think we just need to listen before we dissect, because honestly, in my opinion, I have no idea what he was trying to say.
Okay, we'll let him play.
Octavia that her parents used to get along okay.
When I was a kid and my parents didn't hate each other.
There's also a very clear picture of the family in their kitchen where they all used to be happy together. The episode takes mention to focus in on it.
It's a picture!
You're posing for a picture.
I'm sorry. I know I said we'll let him play. It's a picture!
But you're right. No photo ever has been staged.
Yeah, you really think someone would do that? Stand in front of the camera and tell lies?
Tell lies. Oh my god.
I guess while we're paused, like the bit where he plays where Octavia says my parents didn't hate each other. First of all, that's her perception of the relationship. That's one.
She was a child.
Yeah, and two, it's very easy to pretend to be in love in front of your child.
And he does go on to say, he's like, hardly any he's like, almost all children know when their parents are unhappy or like abusing each other or doing whatever. And it's like, I agree with that to some extent, but not all children know if they hide it well.
I didn't know until it was almost too late.
Wow. So there you go. Exactly. You have that direct experience.
Yeah, it doesn't get like rebuttal doesn't get better than that. You're wrong here.
Again, especially because you're children, you don't even think about that kind of stuff.
We'll let them cook, but like, damn, starting to smell
Who
fire.
let this guy cook? Never let this guy cook again.
Never let bro cook again, bruh.
This is not the same family we saw from episode 2. Stella was obviously a giant bitch. We know this from her blatant prejudice against imps and the lower class. That's fine. You can still have a bitchy person without making them completely irredeemable. There's a moment just before the You'll Be Okay song where the two are sleeping in bed together, and they seem at least capable of working together. Their body language and dialogue here doesn't quite demonstrate this level of abuse. They have a loveless marriage, sure.
What does this guy think an abusive relationship is like?
I have no idea.
Is it just
Again,
like
that's what I'm
insulting
saying,
and beatings like 24/7?
Yeah, I have no idea. The whole point, not the whole point, the whole argument of people like saying that victims should get out of there because they're like, oh, isn't the relationship always terrible and always being beaten and always being abused? It's like, no, they're manipulated because there are good times as well.
There are, yeah, isn't the cycle of abuse like there are long periods of like long periods of quiet and like almost a stalemate, and then there's this rising tension, and that culminates in like these large outbursts and like anger, and then it goes back again to quiet.
Yeah,
I just don't know why this guy can see these two like
that's exactly what I was trying to say.
And be like, their relationship isn't abusive. Look, they're able to sleep in bed together and talk to each other. But like, if you pay attention, you notice it's very sterile. They're almost like acquaintances.
Yeah, and again, like you said, there's abusive relationships out there where they have periods of good times where the victim feels like they're genuinely in love and experiencing a healthy relationship, just with ups and downs.
That's why a lot of people stay. Like you, like you said.
Exactly.
Excuse me.
Yeah. No, you're
okay.
good. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Have a loveless marriage, sure. But whatever this is...
What a pathetic fucking man! I like tormenting you.
This ain't it. Believe me when I say there is a massive difference between a cold, loveless marriage and a blatantly hostile one.
Sure, there's a line, but it's very blurry.
Yeah, not everybody's experience is the same. And it's not just one. There's no one way to have an abusive relationship.
Yeah, it's not binary. Again, like, a hostile relationship isn't hostile all the time. I can believe, like, in their off period, so to speak, it's like it's cold and loveless. And when she's in public or when she's alone with Stolas, she's a huge bitch to him. It's just some days are worse than others. I can believe that.
Yep.
Loveless marriage is tragic, but before this flashback in this episode, that's the impression that we were given. Even if there were hints that Stella was catty and bigoted and whatever, it doesn't mean that she wasn't capable of love, or at least trying to make the marriage.
Bro, doesn't Stella try to have Stolas killed?
Yes.
Isn't she the one
That's
who hired
the whole
that
point of
bounty
Stryker's
hunter
character.
or whatever?
Yeah, she hired Stryker.
I guess he skipped that one.
I guess.
You have to realize, like, I'm not excusing her actions, but she's a victim of this arranged marriage too. I don't think she wanted this.
Yeah, there's no excusing her actions. She genuinely is a terrible person, but, like, you gotta...
One of them is trying to
I
make
don't
the
know.
best out of a bad situation, and one of them isn't. That's the difference.
Work. This is the difference between a Cersei Lannister and... I can't even think of a comparison this bad. Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones was a monster, but people were still rooting for her because we understood, one, where she came from, and two, that she had major reasons for acting like this. We believed that at some points she was in love with her brother. I said that. We believe at some points she is capable of love because she cares about her family, her children, and her legacy. She cares a lot about a lot of people, and yet she does monstrous things, and that's a compelling character. This Stella here, none of that. Making Stella this gigantic thunder completely recontextualizes everything we know about this family. One, why was Stolas feeling so guilty? We see him turn his affair in this episode into an absolute Chad moment.
That was the sound of a fucking divorce!
Two, why would marriage be this sacred?
When did he feel guilty in episode 2? Do you know what he's talking about?
Honestly, no. I don't know. Maybe it's when, like, Octavia comes out and, like, you know, obviously is hearing Stella screaming and freaking out, so he's like, oh, let me take you to Lululand to help you feel better.
The only reason I imagine he'd feel guilty is for his daughter's sake.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just saying.
I don't think he cares if Stella knows. They address this in the episode. They don't have feelings of love to each other, so what does it even matter? Back to the Cersei Lannister comparison.
Oh god.
Real quick, do you think Stella is incapable of love?
No.
I don't think so either.
I mean, personally, that's not what I think. But also, like, are we really comparing these characters to Game of Thrones characters? Is this the hill we're gonna die on?
Yeah, are we really doing this right now? Like...
Yeah, the second he was like, oh, well, this woman who commits incest, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, alright, now I don't want to listen to anything you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think Stella is incapable of love. I just think she's lashing out because she's in a bad situation. Again, non-excuse, but one of them is handling it better than the other. I believe Stella loves her daughter at least.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think, she's capable of loving her, but that doesn't mean she's not capable of love at all.
Yeah.
Romantic
She
love.
doesn't love Stolas, and that's blatantly clear. I don't think that makes her incapable of love, but I'm interested to see this next point. Why would marriage be sacred in hell?
In hell. Royalty have affairs all the time, especially in the human world, and other demon lords have sex with their servants, like all the time, like Valentino, or, the literal aspect of lust that was publicly playing with his imp in the middle of his bar. The stigma of race, caste, or marriage, or class, or whatever makes sense because we're in hell, but literally no other character seems to care about marriage loyalty, except for Moxie and Millie, but
Except for these two. I guess he was saying that.
even then, we're led to believe from episodes 1, 5, and 7 that they're the exception to this rule and that their brand of love is unusual for a setting like hell, especially since literally all of the other couples and the Aussies Lounge have alternative lifestyles. For example, there's literally a polycule in this club when earlier we heard from the bouncer that the club was for couples only.
This club is for couples only.
It's what?
What are the rules here? Is hell different from traditional Western views or not? 3. How are we supposed to sympathize with Octavia now? She's 17, and you cannot reasonably say she didn't know how abusive her mother was to her father. Stella literally puts in the newspaper that they're having a party at the expense of Stolas. And we even see from this...
Well, not really. It's an anniversary party. Also, doesn't Octavia know that her parents hate each other?
Yeah, I mean, and she says, I think his point was that, oh, well, in the one episode, she says, oh, there's at one point you guys liked each other. Yeah, and it's like, well, she was a kid, so maybe she just thought that, but in reality, no, they did hate each other.
I'm sure she's referring to the period when she was a child, and they put on an act for her. It's just Stella's not interested in doing that at this point. I'm confused though.
Also,
why would this make us less sympathetic to Octavia? She is the victim.
I don't know.
She is the victim.
Yeah. Plus, like you said before, not all kids know. And I don't know. Trying to be all like, yes.
I'm trying to understand. Is he saying because she was ignorant we shouldn't sympathize with her? Because that's really bad if you're trying to say that.
I have no idea what he's trying to say here. That's why I said I feel like he really is just talking in circles at times.
Let's keep going.
The episode earlier that she attempted to slap him and he caught her hand as a moment of defiance. If he is able to catch her hand like that, it's clear to us that she is used to hitting him and abusing him. Again, the show is confusing on what we're supposed to take as tragic or funny. There is no way a teenager...
What part of this is funny? I always thought it was tragic from beginning to end.
Yeah, and I think him being oh, now the characters have no serious qualities or stories, and now he's oh my god, this serious thing happened. How is this funny? And it's pick a side.
I don't remember this being played for laughs at all.
No, it's just to add context to their characters.
My oh my.
Growing up in this house couldn't recognize that Stolas was being mistreated. Every single teenager on the planet knows when their parents are being abused. There is no way that Stella is hiding this well enough that Octavia wouldn't notice. Also, we can't use the excuse that, they're demons and their morality is skewed. We know this
also,
because literally all of the child...
Not every teenager knows, especially if they're hiding it well. The parents are hiding it well.
Yeah.
I mean, think the majority do, but... How are you going to say every single teenager knows when their parents are being abused? That is just a weird generalization.
You can't talk for everybody's experience.
Exactly.
And again, Octavia does notice, so I don't know why he's saying this at all. It's why she's so grumpy all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
characters have the innocence of human youth, like human children from our own world would have. They are not born evil in this setting, and they are instead twisted by whatever society this happens to be. But it looks like this society isn't even unique to hell. And I'm sure I'll sound like a broken record, but I'm going to come back to this. Later, Blitz is caught sneaking into the mansion. This is also a flashback. Stolas, drunk on absinthe, okay, starts to flirt with him. Blitzo realizes that he could take advantage and starts, but then Stolas confesses that he's really happy to feel passion and want again. Blitzo, with the book in his hands, begins to feel guilty and then fucks him out of pity. Blitzo then leaves the next morning and Stolas has a triumphant moment against his abuser. This is cowardly. I've already done like 3 video essays on this. I've had 2 alignment videos and my essay on the success of Helluva Boss. And I don't mind being wrong about certain things, but this recontextualizes everything. But everything up until this episode made it seem like Stolas and Blitz were in an extremely complicated and delicate relationship that was both simple and yet extremely complicated. The simple part was the transaction. Blitz wants the book. Stolas wants to feel love through sex. They both benefit. Again, up until this episode though, under the surface, both parties had this insidious and very dark edge to it. Both of them were preying on each other, and consequently they were ruining each other's lives while desperately trying to hold on to what makes them happy. And I need to stress that bad characters doing bad things is very, very good drama. And that's what a show like Helluva Boss should demonstrate. Helluva Boss was controversial upon release because it had a problematic, and God I hate that word, relationship for their main character. The word problematic is frankly unnecessary for an adult show of this nature, but a problematic element in a show like this would be appropriate. I could write a whole video essay on the term problematic, but for the simplicity of this particular video, people use the term problematic when they're talking about the subject matter of a show that is harmful to their audience and teaches morally reprehensible lessons. For example, let's say an insensitive racial depiction on a children's show, or a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle using household objects to beat up bad guys, or Jake Paul openly admitting that he's advertising his merchandise to children and encouraging them to pester their parents. Keep in mind that all of these shows and YouTubers are aimed at children with the intent of entertainment and are often trying to teach a moral lesson of some kind. A lot of care needs to be made when creating children's shows, especially when the mainstream media gets involved, because most Western countries have extremely strict guidelines on what you can show to kids. Helluva Boss, while very popular with younger audiences, is clearly an adult show designed for adults. It has subject matter that is inappropriate for children, and with that, 𝐕𝗎𝗎𝗎 and her team have clearly demonstrated that they don't want children and they want to attract a mature audience. They say this literally at the beginning of every episode. There's a big prompt and says, "This is for adults. Children go away." Helluva Boss is not bound by the rules and laws surrounding children's shows because they are an independent project aimed at adults, and they aren't publishing a show on public syndication. This is why shows like Game of Thrones or Westworld get away with showing intense violence and nudity. Their shows are all exempt from the normal guidelines because they are adult shows. Hell, even Castlevania in, I think, season 3 showed 2 rape scenes at the same time. The point is, in the realms of adult fiction, you are allowed to explore darker and more complicated relationships. I would say for the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones and several episodes of Castlevania are quite good because they're allowed to have this edge and they're not bound by the moral need to cater to children. Before season 2, we are led to believe that this show was willing to show complicated and dark aspects of many adult relationships. All of the other relationships had an edge to them, and Moxie and Millie was the one exception, and they were kind of meant to be the pure and committed relationship. Blitz clearly seduced Stolas, even in this episode. That much is clear. He took advantage of Stolas' vulnerability and stole something that could potentially ruin his life, his book. If he doesn't have his book, his life is ruined.
You know, if you get in trouble, I get in trouble. We don't want that.
The only thing that the show has made abundantly clear is that Stolas' grimoire is not meant for killing humans. It is designed for a completely different purpose in mind. And Blitz stealing that puts Stolas in immense danger. Stolas, in turn, is using a, Actually, I do want to talk a minute to talk about caste systems. Many people watching this video are aware of class systems in which people are divided into various social classes based on wealth. If you have very little money, you are considered lower class. And if you have a lot of money, you are considered to be an upper class, and the only real difference between the
Thank you for the lesson on social classes. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But that was a good long stretch we got there, because he was like, yeah, I agree. These are right. Let's see how he does, though.
Classes is determined by wealth. Yes, I know there's a million other small determining factors, but for the most part, upper and lower classes are determined by wealth. A caste system is a strict social system where people are segregated into different social classes through lineage and family. The 𝐓𝗡𝗎𝗏 universe is most certainly operating on a caste system where different races of demons are separated into different classes, or castes. Imps are the lowly serfs, and they can be bought and sold as slaves. In fact, it's been hinted that gold tooth imps are owned by someone. Hellhounds also seem to be a commodity race and can be bought and sold as well.
Moxie, stop shaking! You're gonna shoot our only hellhound. Wow, I feel so loved here.
Succubus and incubus tend to have social, let's call them service jobs, like pop stars or STD spreaders. And owls, I guess, are royalty. I really dislike that all the owls are royalty. They should have different kinds of demons there, especially since sinners have such a wide variety of different designs. Blitz is clearly part of a very strict caste system, and when Stryker mentions in episode 5 that it was impressive that Blitz started his own business...
Oh, so you're the bold imp that started his own killing biz. Not many imps start businesses on their own. That's pretty impressive, sir.
Oh, yeah, it is. I guess it is, isn't it?
He's saying that Blitz is in direct defiance of Hell's hierarchy by being a business owner.
Scraps and work for bitter sinners who could care less who you are when you could be slaying overlords. Why struggle to run a business that is rigged against you?
He is, despite being bubbling and scrappy, is a relatively powerful member of Hell's economy and social structure. Imps clearly don't make a lot of money, and they're confined to ghettos or poor parts of Hell. Being a landowner like Millie's parents, though, does seem possible, but Wrath does work a little different. They're still doing, like, manual blue-collar jobs, like farmers. Blitz even points out that even Hell's most popular jester doesn't make as much money of him since he started his own business.
I make more money killing people than you do being a cheap-ass robo ripoff of an overrated sellout jester!
My point is, Stolas was clearly exploiting a broken system in order to keep Blitz as what is essentially a sex slave. Granted, he asked for Blitz's permission on the phone when he...
Hold the phone. I need to hear that again.
Stolas was clearly exploiting a broken system in order to keep Blitz as what is essentially a sex slave. Granted...
Fellas, are you a sex slave if you have occasional consensual sexual relations with someone who's in a higher class than you?
I think he's trying to say he's a sex slave because Blitz needs the book, so Blitz has sex with him for the book. Like, as far as Stolas knows, at least in my opinion, he seems like he thinks Blitz wants to sleep with him. Blitz makes that clear from the beginning. He's like, oh yeah, I want to have sex with you, and sleeps with him, like the guy said, out of pity. But he still did it, and didn't, like, it's not like Stolas asked him. He wasn't like, hey, have sex with me. Blitz was like, I'm gonna fuck this guy to get his book. Yeah.
Like you said, they're both getting something out of it. A sex slave would be like if only one person was getting something out of it. You can't just use words that you don't know the meaning of, especially words like sex slave.
Yeah, I see what he was trying to say.
Yeah, I saw where he was going, but ooh,
not it at all.
There are no wheels on this car, my friend.
He asked for Blitz's permission on the phone when he was in the
world. Really?
But this almost made him seem like Stolas was extending him the courtesy of asking for permission, and he only extended that courtesy because he was just hopelessly in love with him. This relationship should be extremely scandalous. Blitz wasn't just poor, he's part of the unclean in the eyes of Hell. Or at least, again, that was the impression that was given in the earlier episodes. Like in episode 7, Asmodeus seems to openly flirt with his imp and...
Wait. I'm starting to see what you mean by talking in circles, because he says, why would marriage be sacred in Hell when people have, like, non-traditional relationships all the time? But then he says that these two relationship should be scandalous. But
Yeah.
it is, and you were criticizing that earlier.
And
what?
But
No, I have
yeah,
nothing. I'm speechless.
I also don't like the one point he made. I know this was a bit earlier where he was like, "I thought this club was for couples. Why is a polycule in here?" And it's like, do they not count
That
as
annoyed me too,
as
but
a couple? Like, it's not. They wouldn't traditionally call themselves a couple, I guess, because it's not two people. But they're still a relationship. Why wouldn't they let them in?
why wouldn't? Yeah, I don't think they meant two people only. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think they just meant people who were dating, and that doesn't limit to two people.
And even if they did mean only two people, like, you can go in pairs and then form a polycule once you're in the building. Yeah, that's a weird thing to nitpick. A weird nit to pick.
Yeah.
No one seems to care, even though the carnival barker from earlier shouts, "Are you sleeping with an imp?" at Stolas. The rules are inconsistent. Why are certain things forbidden for one character, but not another? And please, if you want to explain it to me in the comments...
Stolas is royalty!
I was just gonna say, and 𝐼𝐴𝐻 ranks higher than Stolas, so of course nobody's gonna, especially the people who were in his club or working in his club, are not gonna be like, oh, criticizing him, but they'll criticize Stolas because they don't even know him, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The 𝐒𝐿𝐻s, they clearly have some standards. They talk about it all the time in the Circus. And, I think this episode, where they say you're dating an imp.
I don't know. I just think if there is different rules for them, it's because 𝐼𝐴𝐻 literally ranks higher than Stolas in, like, Hell's hierarchy.
I don't think the rules apply to him. I think he makes the rules.
Yeah, and he was at his own freaking club.
Wasn't he almost encouraging of his, like, forbidden relationship with Blitz? Wasn't he just like, "Oh, you're dating an imp? Oh, okay, I see."
He was like, he was like, "Oh, I can't." He was like, "I hope you didn't give up your life and, like, your smoking hot wife for, like, sleeping with an imp." But, like, of course he was. He's the demon of lust. He thinks that's, like, juicy and like dramatic. He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like proving his own point. Like, lust will ruin everything, and, like, people will do anything for it. Like, he's like, that's, like, what feeds him, you know?
I almost think he'd be cool with that.
He absolutely is.
He is. Yeah, I can prove it, actually.
Have to give examples from the episodes directly. You cannot use your headcanon or common sense to explain these complicated situations because
it's so funny because that's what you've been doing. Just like, this doesn't line up with my lore in these books. These books that have nothing to do with this universe.
Yeah.
Has demonstrated that it can't even follow its own logic, and the show isn't following common sense either. As 𝐿𝐿 can flirt with 𝗬𝗪𝗏𝗏 because he's an aspect of lust, then why can't a demon prince do that? And who said they couldn't?
Because he's higher up.
Because he's not an aspect of lust. And like you said, he's higher up.
Like, hello?
What's not clicking?
Who's to say that people don't criticize him for it? We just didn't see it in that scene.
Yeah. If you did criticize him, I'm pretty sure he'd be like, "Okay, fuck you. I'm the demon of lust. I'll do what I want."
No, really.
Dare you? What do you think the rest of the 𝐒𝐿𝐻 family will think?
If their imp royalty romance is so scandalous, how did Stolas get away with this in the Ring of Wrath?
Especially that sexy little one there. Yoo-hoo, Blitzy.
I don't think... Oh, I was about to say I don't think they knew who... Wait, yeah, they probably still don't know who he's talking about. I don't imagine everyone there knows who Blitz is.
Yeah, and even if they do, again, like, it's just a bunch of random imps in their opinion, so they're not going to give a shit what, like, he's going to be like, "Oh, what, who's going to believe a bunch of random imps, you know?
Flirting.
Like, they're going to trust me."
This doesn't indicate that they're in a relationship.
Yeah, and if anything, it just looks like he's, like, dehumanizing, well, de-demonizing them.
I'll Also, the way the initial seduction of Stolas is presented, it just absolves both parties of any wrongdoing. At least in the eyes of the show, the creator, and
really
the audience.
doesn't.
I really don't like this. In making the relationship more...
Like, the relationship is still toxic and highly transactional. This doesn't change that.
Absolutely.
This was just the first con. This was the beginning.
Yeah. And again, what? They're not allowed to have issues? I don't know.
And didn't you say, like, this is for adults? So, sorry. Adult shows are allowed to tackle, like, more, dare I say, problematic themes and relationships and stuff like that.
I don't know. Like, what is he trying to say? Like you're saying, like, what? They can't have problematic relationships? Also, him being like, ugh, I hate the word problematic. That's a weird red flag, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Why
I
do you
caught
care?
that too. I was like, what do you mean by that?
Why do you care? Who cares if people say things are problematic? They are. Is that not the word to use?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that word does get thrown around a lot. I'll give him that, but like, kind of validly so.
I don't know.
For innocent, it takes away the interest and nuance of it. One, if Stolas is in an abusive relationship...
It adds to it. There's a huge contrast between them as little kids and them as adults.
Yeah,
holy fuck.
Absolutely.
Wait, what the fuck? Nobody cares if an abused person has an affair? Oh god. Oh god.
Absolutely no reasonable person in the audience cares if he has an affair. And don't even try to correct me on this. Not one of you feels bad.
Watch me. So not everybody knows he's in an abusive relationship. More people know that he's in an affair than the people who know he's in an abusive relationship.
I think he's trying to say the fans. Like, he's trying to be like, oh, the fans don't care that he's fucking Blitz because he's in an abusive relationship. And it's like, that's not all completely true. There probably are some fans out there who do care.
Yeah,
but
that wasn't really my takeaway.
Yeah, and again, like, I think nobody's sitting here being like, ah, yes, it's totally okay that he did this because Stella sucks. Like, I haven't heard that take before.
Yeah, not quite. I think it explains why he likes having the big sex with Blitz a lot.
Big sex.
I don't know that the show portrays it as an excuse.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way.
This episode just provides a lot of context. It's why I like it so much.
I agree.
Not one of you feels bad for Stella in this circumstance. She is no longer a three-dimensional who cares if he has an affair. And don't even try to correct me on this. Not one of you feels bad for Stella in this circumstance.
I kind of do.
So
you're wrong.
Yeah. Who are you to say we don't?
Yeah. Everyone in the audience who feels bad for Stella, you just don't exist. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Erased.
She is no longer a three-dimensional character with flaws that are reasonable for a setting like hell. She is just a bitchy waffle. Number 2, Stolas was heavily drunk in this scene. We see him tipsy during their conversation, and Stolas is excused in the eyes of the show because he wasn't at his full capacity when he attempted to exploit someone of lower status. If he wasn't drunk, he probably wouldn't have even considered sex being on the table.
What?
I don't know.
Why not?
I think he absolutely would have, considering they fuck all the time when he's not drunk.
What the fuck is... Okay, so in the episode, it's Blitz who starts making the advances, and Stolas actually pushes back a little bit. He's like, I'm not too comfortable. Is it hot in here? Is it just me? He gets convinced into doing the big sex, yes. But he doesn't, like, jump right into it. You know what I mean?
And then
I
later
actually
on,
forgot that he was drunk.
Sober. Yeah.
Even on my rewatch, because like the way he acts is like it's not that much different.
Again, he does it all the time sober after this.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
Oops.
Oh, whoops.
3, Blitz had no idea that Stolas was going through an abusive marriage. Stolas himself says it's been over 20 years since they saw each other.
So, over 2 decades since I last saw you. Are you still a circus clown?
And if he knew how lonely Stolas was, he likely would have just openly talked to him. The fact that the seduction...
He does know how lonely he is, though. Doesn't Stolas say, like, it's been so long since anyone wanted me in this way?
Yeah. And let's be real.
That's the reason he turns around.
Blitz doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he doesn't... He wouldn't care. There's that, too.
It's Blitz.
The man fucks anything that moves.
Yeah.
Where did this take come from that, like, if he knew he was in an abusive relationship, he would have just, like, sat and talked to him? Would he, though?
Like, no. No, he wouldn't.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
I do not believe you.
Worked out in the first place was a complete accident, and again, absolves Blitz of any purposeful wrongdoing. 4, Blitz still stole the book, but in the moment where he had Stolas literally at his most vulnerable, he still gave him what he wanted out of pity. Blitz, in the eyes of the show, was doing Stolas a favor by giving him a night of passion. They turned the show...
I don't think the show sees this as a good thing, though.
Yeah, I think the whole point of showing this and their background was showing the complexity of their relationship and the power dynamics within it.
Yeah, I almost think the show is saying, like, it's even more messed up than you thought, but it also makes more sense.
Best, most interesting relationship, full of complex themes of love, destruction, self-fulfillment, and toxicity, into a by-the-books, completely safe comedy of errors that can be totally solved with a simple conversation.
What?
In the eyes of the show, neither of these characters have done anything wrong. Stolas was vulnerable and not himself, and Blitz gave an emotionally starved man some much-needed attention. My biggest question I have to ask is, why? Why did you choose to write a story like this in this setting? You set the story in hell, the literal root of all evil, and not once has this show really taken advantage of that setting. According to the show, Angel Dust and Alistair are now older than our supposedly all-knowing demon prince. If children in this setting aren't born evil, why is it so controversial when Moxie and Millie show devoted monogamous love to each other? And if that's controversial, why is Stolas expected to stay loyal to Stella?
I don't know, man. I just think hell in this world is full of, like, a diverse set of people.
Yeah, like, not everybody's gonna be the same.
Kind of like Earth.
And, well, apparently he has an issue with that.
I can't refute or agree with that, because that's his opinion. That's subjective.
I just don't agree with it.
Yeah,
but again, like you said, it's his opinion. He can have it.
I'd be, like, less interested if everyone was just raw, I'm evil, I'm in hell.
And if Stolas is expected to stay loyal, why are other imps shown to be polygamous or cucks, or yet their club that is run by the embodiment of lust is reserved for couples only? Why are we in hell in the first place? Why doesn't this take place in somewhere like California? Is it because you really wanted hitmen to be your main character? Is it because you really like the aesthetic? Why not make them Italian mobsters or Mexican cartel or literally anything else? Again, if you must have this show take place in hell, where almost all of our characters have been fairly reasonable, why is it so controversial for Charlie to want to make people good? And it's not like they said it's stupid that she wants to take them to heaven. It's stupid because she wants to make them good.
What in the 9 circles makes you think a single denizen of hell would give 2 shits about becoming a better person?
A good chunk of the Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel characters are relatively nice and thoughtful. Even in their worst moments, they have bouts of consciousness problems. The show has absolutely given up in trying to tell an interesting story when it comes to nature versus nurture versus social structure and complicated love. It's absolutely wasted.
At this point, I'm just letting him play because I'm too exhausted to keep pausing him.
I was just gonna say, this is where I feel like he starts talking in circles, like being like, oh, why do people of hell care about being, like, they don't care about, like, going to heaven. They care that they think, oh, sorry, I'm, like, totally misspeaking. Let me start that again.
You said, like, it's stupid that she wants to turn
they
them
want to
good.
be better. Yeah, they're like, why do you think anybody in hell would care about being a better person? Why would they care about going to heaven then, too, Like, that's the exact same thing. They go hand in hand. It's not like it has to be one or the other. Yeah.
I think we're working on, like, a different scale here in this universe. I feel like everyone in this world would be, like, horrible by Earth standards. But within hell, you have more of a range of, like, the worst of the worst and, like, the best of the worst, so to speak. Like, I'm pretty sure Millie and Moxie, like, if they went to Earth, people would... Yeah. But, like, if they went to Earth, people would hate them.
Yeah, because they're still from hell, so they have toxic traits.
Yeah.
The whole murder thing.
Yeah, exactly. It just is so much less interesting when you break it down to, like, a binary. It's like, well, are they good or are they bad? I don't know. We have 6 minutes left. Thank God.
Or anything like that, and this is just another cookie cutter show where I'm supposed to root for the cute and fun characters because the writers want me to root for them, and I'm supposed to hate the ugly and nasty characters because they want me to hate them. I've given tons of evidence to explain that this episode has almost nothing to do with what's been given before. It is a complete contradiction of ideas, and it really shows the immaturity of the writing. This show no longer has anything interesting to say to me because I've seen it done better in other shows. I feel lied to, and I'm kinda angry about it. Do you know what this is? This episode is that moment in Frozen where Hans lifts the boat after Anna knocks him into it and he's smiling.
We find out Hans is a bad guy later. This little moment of him smiling like he's a good guy while no one is around is a bit of a cheat in the narrative.
This episode is cheating and...
Is it though?
I personally don't think so. Like, I don't even know why he's mentioning Frozen right now. What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
I think,
like, I know he's trying to say, like, oh, well, this guy... Go ahead.
I think this CinemaSins guy, he also makes terrible videos, by the way.
Yeah.
He's saying, like, Han smiles after Anna, even though no one is around to watch him, when the reveal later is that he's a bad guy. I don't think it's impossible that he still finds Anna charming, even though he plans on manipulating her. Like, I don't know. Was he supposed to, like, laugh evilly? Like, everything is going according to plan.
I was gonna say the same thing, and plus, doesn't that take away from what you find out later on? If
anything, it helps make him feel more human and less like a two-dimensional villain.
Exactly, and that's what I think they're trying to show. Like, oh, he's a person, but then he becomes like a villain later on, or it's revealed that he's a villain later on. Because, like you said, villains aren't always evil every second of the day. Like, they're not always like like maniacally laughing. Like,
for the record, I don't even think Han is that great, but, like, I don't know, that worked for me.
And showing him as a person at first, which is what they like did in general. Like, it's there. He's also trying to be like, oh well, why would they show him, like, smiling and, like, find Anna charming and trying to do whatever? Because, one, we don't even know if that was his intention from the start. Like, he might have just thought Anna was pretty, and then when he found out later on that she was a princess, he was like, oh, I can use this to my advantage. Yeah. Because, again, not all villains are just villains. They're just bad people sometimes. Like, and I think that's more of an interesting who had nefarious plans from the beginning.
Yeah, and I also don't know what that has to do with this.
Yeah, I think it was a weird comparison in my opinion, but I see what he was trying to say.
Yeah. I guess I just thought we'd talk about it since he brought it up.
Is cheating and recontextualizing everything we know, and it's worse for it. Tell me in the comments right now, what's the more interesting story? A 30-something-year-old father who gets a crush on someone and goes through a divorce? Or an ancient and powerful demon who becomes obsessed with someone? What's more interesting? An assassin from a caste of slaves who finds...
That's not.
That's
He's
also
doing the thing
subjective.
where, yeah, he's doing the thing where he makes the other one sound really, really bad by comparison. So you'd look like an idiot if you picked it. But we can do the same thing. I'll do it right now. What's more interesting? A demon who becomes obsessed with an imp, or a man who gains a childhood crush and starts longing for this person to the point where he has an affair with him despite being in a committed marriage to royalty, and that's the only thing keeping his relationship with his daughter stable. It's like, yeah, there you go. I made ours sound more interesting because it is.
Exactly, though. Like, you're right. Just changing the narrative.
Yeah, you can do this with anything, I promise you. I can break Helluva Boss as a show down to just imps that kill people.
Love in his gilded chains, or a semi-decent guy who puts out because he feels guilty? What's more interesting? A woman who, while not in love with her husband, finds contentment and joy in the child that they created together, but feels betrayed after centuries of trying to make it work? Or a heartless bitch who cares about nothing except tormenting a guy still trying to figure himself out? There's a whole third act to this episode as well, but
We
honestly,
can have both.
there's nothing much to say about it. Stolas goes through his phone, realizes that Blitz was never into him, and then he has an argument with Stella that legitimately didn't need to happen. We didn't need to see this animated. We learn that Stella feels nothing about the affair and that she uses it as an excuse to bully him further.
I would feel bad if I hurt you, but we both know I didn't do that.
I'm just disappointed. I thought this show was finally ready to start telling more mature stories, and to me this episode seems completely reactionary. I've mentioned before in several videos that my wife and I go to conventions on the regular, and we see that this show is really popular with small children, which that's just bad parents
guy
not
is a
watching
what?
what they're doing, and the show butts heads.
I said, this guy's a wife?
Oh no.
That poor woman.
That makes his marriage comments even worse. I thought he was like a guy living in his mom's basement.
Oh, really?
I'd at least understand.
With the progressive TikTok and Twitter crowd. There are comments all the time that Stolas was a creep and problematic, and defenders of the show were like, no, it's not problematic at all, and both of these sides are completely missing the point, and the fact that Stolas and Blitz were both bad guys is what gave the show its heart and soul. The show was beautiful in the fact that it was problematic. Again, I will compare to this to early Game of
The
Thrones.
show was beautiful in that it was problematic. I just thought that was worth quoting.
Where bad people are doing bad things, but it's immensely interesting.
Dude,
and
shut
compelling.
up about
and
Game
you
of
root for the
Thrones.
bad people because there's no other good options. But now it seems like the show is no longer interested in showing a complicated, ugly side of society, and is now just making a less edgy Family Guy. Again, if
I'm so sorry you see it that way.
Yeah, also, can I just say this guy has used multiple BoJack Horseman, like, things and
Clips.
Game of Thrones things throughout this, and the fact that he's a fan of both of those shows says all I need to know.
It tells a lot.
It tells a lot.
He's the guy you were talking about in the beginning. He likes Family Guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He praises Family Guy, but
I think his
hates
comparison.
Helluva Boss.
Yeah, or even if his whole point was like, oh, it's just a new version of Family Guy, which, haha, Family Guy sucks, like, blah, blah. It's like, this is just proving my point. They're trying to group all these things together.
Yeah, again, this is all subjective, so all I have to say is I'm sorry you see it that way.
Yeah, again, like, of course he's entitled to his opinion, and I don't disagree with every little thing he said, but I think you can see why I think, at least I believe he was just going in circles towards the end, and
his argumentation skills are like non-existent, and he is way off the mark about a lot of things.
I have no idea what he was trying to say for the last half of the video. Like, it was just in circles and circles and referencing things out of context and referencing things that we've already talked about, but he was digesting them in a different way.
It was like he was making new criticisms like that go counter to his old ones. I feel like his takes are so bad he could like counter them. I feel like he's countered himself at some point on accident.
Yeah, he absolutely has.
Oh, he has.
Yeah, I was
when
gonna
he
say,
said,
didn't we call him out?
why would marriage be sacred? But also, Why is it okay that Blitz and Stolas have an affair? Makes you think.
No, really. I think we should just finish this and then give our closing thoughts. There's only like a minute and a half left.
Yeah, let's just plow through this. But man, I'm starting to think this video needed another draft. Am I right, guys?
Comment below. This podcast was sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
It was sponsored by Audible.com.
I'm hungry for more context of this video, but not anymore because this video is sponsored by HelloFresh.
Oh, that's my favorite, like the transitions. And you just know it's coming.
Yeah,
like, man,
when they start talking about eating, I'm like...
Yeah, I wish I knew more about like astronomical physics or whatever. So the Skillshare, you're just like, what?
You're like, oh Jesus, here we go.
If you're not going to show me something raw and real, why even bother with the sex and swearing? If you want good sound messages for children and adolescents and even young adults, just take all that shit out. Kids don't need to see that. This isn't for them. At the beginning of every episode, it says that the show is made for adults, but the writers are treating them like children with how one-dimensional every character is becoming. And again,
how many times is
all of the problems...
How many times is he going to say,
Perry.
the show isn't for children, but the audience is children?
The themes are for children. It's like, what? Even if that's true, what's wrong with that?
And he already made the argument that the themes in the show aren't for children, and now he's saying they're treating us like children.
Oh my god. I can't do this.
Just talking in circles.
Like, even if it was true that all these characters are one-dimensional and the themes are for babies, but the show is for adults, what would be wrong with that? They're still teaching good lessons, aren't they? Does every character need to be three-dimensional? I don't think so.
No. Me neither.
And they're not. I mean, they are.
Pretty much exist in this episode. Although I would argue episode 7 has some inconsistencies too, but at the very least, it was just carried by the relationship between Stolas and Blitz in it. Part of me wonders, where will the show head later? Will it be revealed that Blitz doesn't actually kill anybody and instead he takes the effort to investigate those he kills? Is this why we saw them fight a cannibal family in episode 1 and kill...
I mean, he definitely kills some people on screen, so I don't know how you'd work that in.
Nope.
Whole family in episode 1 and kill them. And even though weirdly enough at the end of episode 1 it's implied that, you know, morality isn't their business is assassination, it doesn't matter.
But guilty and innocent aren't our business, Mox. Killing who we're paid to is our business.
Many fans, including myself, say that episode 4 with the angels is absolutely the worst episode of the show because it has nothing to do with, like, any of the themes. Did episode 4 happen purely because Helluva Boss wanted to demonstrate that heaven is run by corrupt and horrible people and that will literally gatekeep those trying to spread joy because of a mistake? Ooh, angels are bad and God...
I don't know. I like that last bit at the end. I think we talked about this in the pilot. I touched on it. It sort of recontextualizes a lot of Hazbin Hotel, because isn't the goal is to get like sinners into heaven? But this episode, yeah, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that's the whole point of Charlie opening the hotel. It's like a rehab place to get sinners into heaven, so not so many of them get killed during the like overpopulation. I forget the exact word, like whatever they call it, like extermination every year.
Yeah, but then like that scene at the end of this episode with the deer, it sort of implies that like that whole thing is doomed because if you make a mistake, you get locked out of heaven.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's interesting. But that's not the reason I like this episode. I just like it because it's funny. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I like parts of it, but it's definitely not one of my favorites. But I do like I like when Moxie and Millie like are swinging around and making out with each other and everything.
That's a really cool animation moment.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. I like it. Like shows that I think that gave more like depth to their relationship because early on Mox is like very shy and like doesn't want to kill people, and now he's at the point where he's saving Millie, and they're like you know, he's like helping
Yeah.
her kill people while
It's very
like
comfortable.
well, obviously it's doing something for the both of them for them to be making out during it all.
The idea that it's the worst one for people, I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm glad we agree though that the best one is the one with 𝗬𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 Mayday when they go to the
Hello?
beach. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I was gonna say, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
Oh no. Do you see my thing? Oh no, what's going on? Send them a message.
Now I can hear you.
Oh, okay. What happened back there?
I couldn't hear you. You cut out. I just texted you.
Same, I was just asking, can you see my green light?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. That was weird. Anyway.
Yeah, well, at least now we can cut that out.
Yep. But I was saying the idea that this one is the worst for people, I'm just like, oh, I mean, okay.
Sure.
But I'm glad we agree that the best episode is the one where they go to the beach, right? With 𝗬𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧 Mayday.
That is my second favorite one, but it's definitely honestly, like, I think that one, and again, like I said, the 𝗬𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧 one is probably my favorite. They're probably tied for first place.
I'll have to watch them all again to like be final.
Yeah, but I love
really
that
like
episode.
one. Yeah.
Me too.
𝗬𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧 Mayday, if you're out there, please come
Just
on
one
Haters
chance.
Without a Cause.
Just one chance, Queen, please.
Just one night.
Please. Give anything.
Is evil for creating the system. Careful, you might accidentally become deeper than Final Fantasy II. I just have very little faith in this series moving forward, and I was one of its biggest fans and supporters. I was shouting from the rooftops, you needed to watch it, and I'm still going to support 𝗬𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 independent creator to succeed. Stolas is still my favorite character, and he's very funny, and I like seeing him, though I don't think that they're ever going to give him his edge back. And I know they'll never ever do anything to compromise his character because they really want you to root for him. And for the record, though, casually killing humans in this show doesn't count as edgy. The show uses violence like Itchy and Scratchy uses violence. The violence is very desensitized, and the characters have gone on massive rampages, and it's always been shown as heroic or at the very...
If I'd never seen this show, I think this is pretty edgy.
Mm-hmm.
In this sequence in particular, it's very self-indulgent. It looks cool as fuck, but it's very self-indulgent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Least funny. Having your characters kill nameless humans doesn't give them an edge. If anything, it comes off as childish. I'm sorry, I know this feels very ranty and all over the place, but I really want to communicate that this episode fails for me on nearly every level, and those that are paying attention, like Dire Gentleman and Nezu Neutral, have already checked out. There are a lot of 𝐓𝗡𝗡 channels out there that are just praising the episode, and they really like the animation and the soft, innocent demons. And again, that's fine. You're allowed to like it. It's still good, but you've gone from great...
You just said it failed on every level. 30 seconds left. We're in the home stretch.
Oh, thank God.
Just pretty good. And hell, I was still laughing my ass off when Stolas was going all horny for Blitz. It was funny. You're allowed to like it. I just really want to express that I feel disappointed. Thank you to the patrons, and I'll see you next time.
Can't believe this dude gets patrons.
This many.
Yes, patrons.
Look at all these fuckers.
If this guy can get patrons, we can get patrons.
We can get patrons. I'll make a Patreon today.
No, really.
Is it just names for the rest of the runtime?
Ugh.
God damn.
Well, honestly,
that's enough of that.
Yeah, I think our points were just proven. He started talking in circles and contradicting himself, and I don't know. I think everything I needed to say about this video I said during it.
Yeah, same. There's not a lot to like about this video.
Oh.
It's pretty bad.
I see. Yeah, like like that's what I said in the beginning. I saw his original points, like what he was trying to convey at first, but like then towards the end he just stopped making sense.
Yeah, I think I see what you mean now, but like he gets worse over time because his takes in like the first half are bad, and then his takes in the latter half are just like they're nonsensical. Like I can't even follow what he's saying. I thought he was gonna go like beat by beat throughout the episode, but then like in the middle it just turns to like this hogwash of rants, and it just turns into jelly, and I got lost.
I did too. Just a whole lot of nonsense.
Yeah, but that was that.
Yeah, well,
we
if you made it through all of this, thanks. Yeah, well, I think we made some good points, and thank you for watching all of this. If you made it through this experience with us.
Yeah, you're real ones if you made it to the end. But
oh yeah,
you could have skipped, and we may not know the difference. I wouldn't blame you, but
no, I would skip through it. Just kidding. But you know what I mean?
What was your favorite part?
What?
What was your favorite part?
Of us roasting him?
No, of the video.
Oh. Oh. Do I have anything good to say?
There's so many to choose from.
Yeah, like it's so hard.
I liked when he compared the show to Game of Thrones, and he thought that was like an own.
Yeah, how he compared Stella and Cersei. That was a real own.
It's a good meme. Top keck.
Yeah, just quality content. I'm about to join his Patreon and keep funding these beautiful things in his little character animatic in the side corner of his videos.
Yeah, as he keeps making videos in his like man cave. You know he has a man cave.
Crazy.
But yeah, I'm sorry you had to sit through that whole thing twice.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But
No, I'm sorry for you.
Oh, because I sat through it twice. I was like,
yeah,
they did have to watch us not only watch the video but watch us repeat those points. But yeah, thanks. But again, I wanted to be sure my first still rang true. Reaction
completely
from
valid.
The first time I saw it, and I was absolutely right.
Completely valid.
The first time. It at all.
But yeah, do you have anything else to say before we sign off today, Perri? You horrible person.
You know, coming from you with how horrible you are, that's really means a lot to me. And I'll just leave it at this. This guy's absolutely entitled to his opinion. There's nothing against him personally, just didn't agree with his takes, but in the end, Eve and I are right. And again, as always, thank you guys for listening and supporting us. It means the world, and hopefully you like this new style, because we're going to be able to edit out our issues and deliver better quality content for you all.
Yes. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next Sunday.
See you then.